evening, everyone. Hope you all had a great Thanksgiving as we now fill your weekend with Superspeedway racing. It's races 3 and 4 of the second season of the TNR Sunday Superspeedway Series. And yes, you heard that right, because tonight it's the Dega doubleheader, the Dega Dashes, whatever you want to call it. You're getting two races for the price of one, but theoretically, it's taking a full-length Dagger race from last season, splitting it in half, and having two events. So with that being said, Seth Cole alongside of Lucas Cram. Lucas, what is the strategy now? Because it's only 30 laps per race for these guys. Oh yeah, and by the way, this first race is the first Dash for Cash event on the season.
Yeah, all that adds up to pushing as hard as you can for every single lap of the 30 we have here tonight, most definitely. We've seen these guys have put on incredible shows and incredible racing start to finish each and every single week on these super speedways. And at a place like Talladega, anything can happen. And, basically, like we mentioned, having a full race and kind of giving out double points, if you will, with the two, separate finishing results you'll have. These guys are going to have to push to make sure they get up front as soon as possible and try to be there at the end of this 30 lap.
So far this season, two races, two different drivers have gone to victory lane. Take a look at our starting lineup today with 24 drivers rolling off the grid for the first race. Three drivers making their debuts, and how about Mark Jones, one of the debuting drivers there? Yeah, grabbing the pole position from Dylan Poteet, who's making his second start on the year. Got a lot of names that are familiar from last season, the first two races of this season, mix in some new blood. This should be very interesting. I believe it's the largest field that's ever run here in this series.
Yeah, 24 cars here tonight, and you mentioned Mark Jones putting on pole. That's a heck of a way to debut into a series, kind of making your statement that you're here to contend and not just to show up and, try to settle in. So obviously, he's going to be trying to look to stay up front. And the thing with 30 laps is, too, I don't think we're going to see these guys pit at all unless they get damage, and have to come down for repairs. So these guys are going to have to, just carry that track position. Obviously, it's, it can get shuffled very quickly here at Talladega, but these guys are just trying to keep their way up front and just make sure they don't give anything up.
Showed you 15th place, the last to take time. Bill Edwards, he'll be alongside of Bronson Stafford, last week's runner-up. He'll be 16th. Row 9 with Vincent Valvano, a former Talladega winner from last year. Garrett Gleason rolls off 18th. Matthew Rodriguez and Kyle Lewis make up row 10. Austin Grover and Dylan Boddy in row 11. And bringing up the final row in 23rd and 24th, Jason Shuey and the debuting Tim Connolly. Four drivers in the Dash for Cash, the top four in the point standings from last season. Your defending champion David Duran, runner-up finisher Austin Grover, as well as multi-time winner Matthew Rodriguez, and the last driver to win here at Talladega back in season 1, Mike Tellier. Highest finishing of those four gets the Dash for Cash. Plus, in the upcoming second race, we're going to be determining who will be the four in the Dash for Cash in the season finale. But here we go, Lucas. 30 laps of racing in the first of two Dagger races here tonight.
Green flag is out and away here at Talladega. It's up to zero. Mark Jones loses way into turn 1, but immediately Robert Kenny jumps to his inside from help from that defending champion David Duran in the number 24 machine. And now, as they work their way through turns number 1 and 2, I think that just showcases how aggressive these guys will have to be here today.
Saw these guys 3 and 4 wide in practice. You remarked on them 4 wide in qualifying with the open qualifying sessions they have here. So they are not going to be afraid to take it to the limit here in the early stages. Mark Jones getting almost bounced around there. I think that was Dylan Poteet he made contact with. Now Poteet's paying the price as he drops to the back. Robert Kenny out in front. Mentioned Valvano and Tellier, former's at Talladega. Kenny won the second Talladega race here 1 season ago. And Robert Kenny, of course, coming into this race as the defending winner from last week at iRacing Superspeedway. Subsequently, your points leader coming into this one over our season opener winner, Ryan Hesgard, 57 points in hand. And I think that's an interesting thing, too, because we talk so much about consistency during the course of the season. And if you're able to finish up there at the front week after week, take a look at a guy like Hesgard, who's only run in one of the two races we've had so far, and he's still second in the point standings over a bunch of guys that have taken part in every race so far.
Yeah, and Ty Smith down there now getting pushed down on the apron, but he's able to hang on to another one of your drivers making their TNR Super Series debut here tonight. The number 5 Valvoline Camry is now 2x2 for the race lead. David Duran now getting a push for Alonso Chicano, and the 95 machine. We've talked about how close he's been to victory lane so far in this series through 2 seasons now. Was very close to getting his way into victory lane today. Daytona, the season opener, some contact for the race lead right there. Turns the 24 machine up in front of the number 95. But, this doubleheader, it's 2 opportunities, obviously, for a checkered flag. And, maybe the shorter race will play into the 95 machine's hands of trying to, keep his way up front at the end when it counts and hopefully breaking his way into victory lane.
Mike Tellier's got the same idea I've got. Get out of Dodge because things are getting hairy at the front. Duran went for a block. It didn't work. Bronson Stafford forced to the apron. He makes contact with Ty Smith. Now he has to run the short way around the racetrack, but certainly not the easiest way down below that double yellow line. He's going to drop to the back as a result. These guys are not giving an inch. Talladega's rather spacious, but they are door banging in the early stages.
Yeah, for real. And obviously, we mentioned every single week that yellow line is inbounds in this series. There's no yellow line rule. You can turn it on the apron. And Talladega is the one Superspeedway out of the 3 where you can actually have some banking that catch your car through the center of the corners. But unfortunately, just kind of got a little tight there and a little hairy. So I'm sure you'll see these guys kind of try to use that more to their advantage, especially later on in this event. But with only 30 laps, we're already seeing it kind of play out here pretty early.
Full-length race last season at Talladega was 57 laps. In 2 of the 3 races at Dega, we went into overtime. Only 30 laps in the 2 races here tonight. So with that being said, you talked about the unlikelihood of these drivers even having to come to pit road for fuel. So does that put a sense of urgency into these guys that start mid-pack or rear of the field? Or is 30 laps enough time to slowly and methodically work your way to the front to pick up a checkered flag?
Well, it definitely, especially when you stay green like this without any accidents, kind of give you some positions. It could definitely increase the urgency just knowing that there's no real shakeup that you'll have in the running order in the track position. Talladega seems like a very easy place to pass, but when you have this many cars in the field and you get bunched 2 and 3 wide, like we've seen during the course of this event, it can be, to an extent, difficult to get your way up front. And so, again, not having that shakeup, if you will, of track position through pit stops, it's definitely going to increase the intensities. Now you see number 5 machine, he clear Robert Kennedy, slide right down in front of number. Oh, he turns down the corner. Big wreck.
This is going to be huge as it was at the front and they were double wide, several rows deep. Kyle Lewis, you see sliding into the incident. The 81 of Joey Chapman involved, and we're going to have to look quite a bit to figure out just exactly who was involved. I see Rodriguez through the smoke. The 4 there of Connor Holden making his debut tonight. There's Mike Tellier, damage on the front end of his car. I believe that's Chapman I still see there on the inside. Wow.
Really aggressive, really early. That's exactly what the result will be. And, the most interesting about that is that Ty Smith, who got turned sideways first, he actually was able to straighten it back out and has relatively little damage to the number 5 machine. So he kind of kept going through the grass and made it out on the other side. But big pile up here really early on lap 5.
That was Tim Connolly, the 59 we showed there, stopped down on the apron. I believe that's over in 3 and 4. Let's go back and take a look at what happened. And there was, as we said, a lot of moving around early in this race. Ty Smith had just been pushed to the front courtesy of Tristan Maher, and I'm not certain if he tried to come down and block or if maybe Kenny tried to fit his nose into a lane that wasn't there. We'll go back to turn 3.
Yeah, look at the number 98 machine, push that 5 out front, and he kind of, for a moment, it looked like hesitated again down the bottom lane. Robert Kennedy felt like he maybe had a nose in there. Then, the 5 machine managed to get clear there, square up, and we see it every single week in this series as well with these old Xfinity cars. It's just super easy to bumper hook somebody going into the corner if you're pushing, even if you're square, and unfortunately, that was exactly what happened there. Just turn him sideways enough, to get himself turned around too. Off the rear bumper and kind of right in front of the rest of the field. Joey Chapman, nowhere to go for him, and the rest of the field who piles up behind him.
A couple of drivers I saw involved in that one. Actually, 3 of our Dash for Cash drivers. A little bit of contact to the front of the 57 of Matthew Rodriguez. Saw Mike Teller involved, and David Duran was trapped on the top side, got completely blockaded in with nowhere to go. So that's a few of our Dash for Cash drivers that are going to have to deal with some damage early on. In the case of Duran, we'll take a look and see just how hard an impact he took, whether or not he would have to use a faster pair. And the last couple of weeks have not been kind to David Duran in terms of when he has to decide to take on the faster pair, because he's kind of tried to hold out, save that faster pair till the end. Then a long run comes in, he's off the pace, and he finds himself off the lead lap in the second half. And so could be a big decision here to see quite a bit of damage on the right side, right front, on the right rear. I mean, he got pancaked just about everywhere on the right side of that Exalted Chevrolet.
Yeah, and it was all front end damage, so I'd have to assume that's probably a ton of engine damage under the hood of a 24 machine. So if he wants any chance to stay in the lead lap, which is exactly what we saw last week, he tried to save that Iverson Superspeedway, and unfortunately it fell way off the pace and went a lap down, and kind of spent the rest of the race trying to work his way back up, to recover from that. So I definitely would say he'd probably take his faster pair, but a couple big misses out of that too to point out real quick. Bronson Stafford, a nice miss in the number 61 machine, kind of getting through that right behind Ken Caldwell, also kind of followed him through that gap. And that's the thing really early on, if you can miss accidents like that and kind of, get your lucky charms, if you will, and just kind of make sure you keep your nose clean. In this sort of a race, it's probably not going to matter too much of attrition, but with the intensity level we have, unfortunately, we're probably going to expect a lot more of those big incidents like that.
Looks like Austin Grover in the 83 was also involved. So 4 out of our 4 Dash for Cash drivers all collected up in this one. Here's on board with the 83 as he was just behind Connor Holden and gets on the brakes, makes contact there with Joey Chapman and not quite able to get through it. That was Michael Norman just sliding through the grass there ahead of him. So a lot of drivers with near misses, some coming out relatively unscathed, minor damage, and then there's others that received quite a bit of damage. As a matter of fact, one of the drivers has gone to the garage area as a result. We were on board with him just moments ago, and that was the debuting Tim Connolly. He is going to finish 24th here tonight, at least in the first Talladega race. Looks like 4 drivers took on faster pairs. John Cannon Zarrow, Mark Jones, who started on the pole, Robert Kenny, and Mike Tellier, all a faster pair in the hole here. And maybe the decision made a little bit easier for some of these guys in the fact that it's not a 57-lap race that they're planning for. It's a 30-lap race because they're going to have a faster pair to fall back on, not only here in this first race, but the second race as well.
Yeah, interesting to point out, David Duran, one of those drivers you did not mention on that list there, who took on that faster pair. So obviously, he's going to try to get as much optional repairs as possible done on the number 24 and try to get it as clean as he possibly can. But I'm intrigued to see, especially after what happened last week, if that'll be enough for him to stay in the draft. And, these cars do appear to be kind of tanks for the most part, but after that hard hit at the front end like that, it's really difficult to get that engine power back. But, hopefully for him, that kind of works out and he can try to turn his luck around in this season.
So Mike Tellier is the only one of the Dash for Cash drivers that elects to take his faster repair on now. Grover, Rodriguez, and Duran going to ride it out at least for the current point in time. Explain a little bit here about the Dash for Cash in not only this race, but in the upcoming second race as well. Here in race number 1 here at Talladega, we'll be determining who's going to be the first winner of the Dash for Cash in the 4 drivers mentioned as the highest finisher. Now, whoever wins the Dash for Cash here tonight, they will be locked into the Dash for Cash at iRacing Superspeedway on, I believe it's December 19th in the season finale. They will be joined by the winner of this race, and they will also be joined by the other 2 drivers that finish the highest in the upcoming second Talladega race. So the 2 drivers that win the Dash for Cash in the race here, they're already locked in. 2 drivers will join them in the upcoming second race, and those 4 will fight it out in the second Dash for Cash in the season finale. Of course, iRacing Superspeedway moved on the schedule. It was going to be the 6th race on the year, but it swapped places with Daytona, so we'll be going to the 2008 version of Daytona next week. Then we'll be going to the night version of Daytona the following week, setting us up for the championship at iRacing Superspeedway, which, based off of last week, is going to be a very interesting place to settle a championship out.
Yeah, definitely. And, still a little bit of ways left here. Lap number 8 in this first half of the doubleheaders at Talladega. Alonso Chicano gets a huge jump on the outside lane and gets ahead of Tristan May here in the number 98 machine. And on the Suit 95, will probably tuck down in front of him into turn number 2, which he does. And now I'm going to try to just control the rest of this pack. And I'm intrigued to see, what the laps continue to tick off. Again, the lack of the pit stops that are required for these drivers up front. After that big incident, a lot of guys had to take their faster pair. Will we see the intensity at all kind of diminish at least to a little bit and maybe come down just for now?
Like Chicano tucking in front of Tristan Maher. They're going to have Cam Caldwell down there as well. Here comes Bronson Stafford up the middle, and bit of a comeback last week as he had a glitch we found out on pit road where his tire was sticking through the hood. That's why we saw him fall as many as 3 laps down, but he was able to get most of those laps back, got a free pass, got back in the lead lap, and battled back almost to the victory. Came up just short in the runner-up position to teammate Robert Kenny, but you talk about Chicano, a driver that we see week in, week out, that appears to be a guy that should have been in victory lane by now. I think Bronson Stafford would fit that criteria also.
Yeah, most definitely. And a lot less starts than ever 61 machine in this series, but definitely somebody that is already proving that he can try to continue to contend for wins week in, week out. And now 57 machine, Matthew Rodriguez 3 wide on the high side from helping number 88 right there in line. And that's the thing. If you can get that third lane to work, a lot of guys usually tend to be more comfortable running up against the outside or retaining the wall as 88 max the fence.
Did you say against the outside retaining wall?
Yeah, maybe not that close, but yeah, the 57 machine, we see him every single week. He likes to get up there and try to make that line work. And as long as you know how to do it, and stay out of the fence, which is a very easy thing to, fail to do so. But, as long as you can get up there, it can definitely pay huge dividends and improve you pretty fast.
It's interesting because I've heard from a lot of drivers at speedways, you run up against that wall and just the way that the wall kind of takes the air off your car, it's like it wants to suck you in. Do drivers experience that same thing at the Superspeedways?
Yeah, definitely, and especially in the car behind pushing, you obviously can't see out in front of you when you're glued up right behind every bumper of that car in front of you, and so it's very easy to kind of just drift up a little too high, and all of a sudden you catch the right rear or the right front even on the safety barrier, and it kind of just pulls you right in. And Iris did add that wall arrow thing, but it doesn't really do a whole lot to kind of pack air against your car when you're at a super speedway. So it's definitely very easy to kind of fall in that trap and really nick it.
Chicano right now, clean air out in front, and he's got a drafting partner in Tristan Maher behind him. Here comes Bronson Stafford, Matthew Rodriguez, though. Those Camrys going to hook up on the top side. Of course, Matthew Rodriguez trying to win the dash for cash here, trying to maybe help push Bronson Stafford to a victory. One driver that has subsequently seemed to bow out early from the dash for cash battle is David Duran. He still sits on pit road, now 5 laps down in the 24th position. Tim Connolly, who I originally assumed was out of the race, must have been having connection problems, has returned back to the server and moved up to 23rd place, but he is 2 laps down. Those are the 2 drivers off the lead lap. All 24 still scored in the race, 22 on the lead lap, and man, that was close off of turn 4 between Tristan Maher and Alonso Chicano.
Yeah, big catch right there. Both of those drivers, it kind of got a bit of a side draft on. I'm not sure if it was intentional or not on that high side, but luckily for all of them, it kind of paid off cleanly. And now the 61 gets out front. We mentioned David Duran there, 5 laps down. We were talking about how bad that damage was. Obviously, I would have to assume it was probably required repairs, and unfortunately, David just probably forgot to turn on his fast repair before entering his pit box, and now he's kind of trapped in there until that damage gets fixed. So really unfortunate luck there for a defending champion who just has not had a very good rebound season coming off that championship and trying to defend the win season too. So unfortunately for him, he's got a lot of work to do in the second half of the season. But side by side now for the race lead, Matthew Rodriguez up there on the high side trying to get up here and lead, I believe, his first lap so far of the 988 machine, back in line behind him and not in the outside retaining wall.
Looks like he's going to edge ahead through the tri-oval. Of course, Talladega, it's talked about all the time where the location, the start-finish line is here, midway between the tri-oval and turn 1. That extra few hundred feet plays so much of a difference in who would win a race at Daytona and who wins the race here at this Superspeedway as Rodriguez jumps to the bottom. Terrian now on the top side with Chicano, and got a couple of drivers that have kind of been ducking out back there mid-pack, going to the apron, dropping towards the rear of the field. One driver I've noticed that is slowly making his way to the front. How about our runner-up finisher from the season opener, Bill Edwards? Ryan Hesgard, rather, to the race win. Had himself second in the overall standings after Daytona. Had a decent run last week as well at iRacing Superspeedway. First 2 starts of his TNR Sunday Superspeedway Series career, and he comes into today's race 4th in the overall standings.
Yeah, definitely not, falling off that mark whatsoever. Up here now, battling inside the top 5 and inside the top 10 all race long. And as we're going to be crossing the halfway point next time around, definitely a good place to be at this current position in the race, kind of chilling up there on the outside lane. And You mentioned those cars kind of tucking in line back there. It looks like the number 4 machine and Connor Holden kind of drops out of line in that Valvoline Camry. And surprisingly, he kind of did that because he's got a lot of damage to the nose of that machine. He's 4 wide almost for the race lead up here, or just outside of race lead, I should say, as it kind of continue to shuffle around. Now the 97 machine, Mike Tellier, who we've also seen when he said Talladega contact, the 95 gets turned into Rodriguez in a big pile up once again in turn number 4.
Tellier, Rodriguez, Stafford, they're continuing to pile in. One car's up and over. I think that might have been Cannon Zarrow. Not certain. No, that's not Cannon Zarrow. That's the 12 of Cam Caldwell that went up and over and ends on his roof. Second caution of the evening and second big one, again, over in the middle of 3 and 4.
Wild ride right there for Cam in that 12 machine. As you mentioned, he got launched up into the catch fin and did about 20 barrel rolls as he came back down off the banking and then flipped up and over the 57 machine. Probably one of the wildest barrel rolls I've ever actually seen on iRacing, but just a huge pile up involving almost everybody from second position on back.
Mentioned Mike Tellier had already used his faster pair. There's the damage on Matthew Rodriguez. So at least so far here tonight, Talladega not playing nice with our Dash for Cash drivers. And you mentioned it was 3 wide for the race lead going into turn 3. Let's see if we can figure out where the trouble started. And it could have been much like what we saw in the first wreck with an errant bump.
Yeah, it actually kind of looked like almost the same thing where one car kind of got pushed in the outside lane, tried to clear the middle lane in this case, I should say. And Mike Tellier was kind of hesitant on coming down in front entirely of Lonzo Chicano on the 95. But as soon as the 95 kind of poked his nose in there, he kind of cleared, shut the door on the 95 machine, tried coming down, and unfortunately right behind the 98 was just not really aware of that, I guess, happening in front of him, being tucked up behind the back bumper of the number 95 machine, and unfortunately just kind of tapped him in the wrong spot after he had to check up and turn him right down there Rodriguez and kind of just set the whole thing off.
Look here again at the wild ride by one Cam Caldwell. Just gets clipped there by Mike Tellier, and then as Matthew Rodriguez is spun up the track, squeezes the 12 into the outside wall. Wild barrel roll, not nearly the height that we saw Joey Chapman get last week at iRacing Superspeedway, but so far in the last 2 weeks, we've seen a driver go up and over, and Cam Caldwell, the victim of this one. And there were a couple of drivers collected up in that wreck, including Mike Tellier, that had already used their faster pairs, so we'll have to wait and see how up to speed that 97 car is going to be. Mentioned the fact that, of course, last season, it was the third of 3 Talladega races that we ran back in season 1. Mike Tellier going to victory lane in that race, and it was a pretty popular victory there, as Mike Tellier had been so close in the weeks following up to that he almost was able to find victory lane and would usually lose it on the final lap. In the case of, I think it was 2 weeks prior to that victory at iRacing Superspeedway, he lost the lead race win in the last corner. But looks like at least here in this first Talladega race, that luck not going to be coming his way. But again, for a lot of these guys, I guess the silver lining is if you don't do well here in this first race, you've got another 30-lapper coming up immediately afterwards.
Yeah, definitely. Mentioning that 97 Machine's victorious run here at Talladega, he was able to get after, it was after he got involved in, I believe, about 9 incidents almost. I feel like that race, every single incident that happened, he got involved in some, fashion without his own doing. And, maybe he can come back from that here tonight. And it looks like Matthew Rodriguez, the 57 machine, may have had that same glitch we saw at the 61 half last week, where he came down, took his faster pair, and had the wheel kind of sticking up through his hood. So he actually had a disconnect from the server, just like Bronson Stafford had to do last week and reconnect. So unfortunately for him, he's probably going to lose a lap or 2 potentially in the process. But as long as he can come back in the server, which he just now does, and can get back rolling, hopefully he'll stay relatively in this lane.
He might actually stay on the lead lap, because I'm not certain the leaders have come around yet since he disconnected and reconnected into the server. So he might actually be okay and still be on the lead lap here. Of course, in the case we saw last week with Bronson Stafford, we found out that a lot of the laps that he lost were added back to him due to it being a glitch out of his control, and then he ended up getting the final lap back with the free pass, bringing it up for a podium finish. We do have a number of drivers off the lead lap here for this upcoming restart, though. Cam Caldwell has returned back to the track, but of course, since that car did not come back on its wheels, he had to tow. He loses a lap subsequently. Tim Connolly currently 2 laps down. Mike Tellier and Mark Jones also off the lead lap. Tellier -2, Mark Jones dropped out of the server for a while, returned back. He is -3, and David Duran has now returned back to the racing surface, but he has scored 7 laps down. So all 24 drivers are still running at this point in time. Looks like 19 will be on the lead lap when we go back green. Shane Tyrion going to be the race leader. Dylan Body in second, Bronson Stafford, Joey Chapman, Vincent Valvano. That's going to be the top 5. Garrett Gleason, Michael Norman, Ty Smith, Robert Kenny, and Dylan Poteet. That's the top 10. And you kind of look at our top 6 or 7. These are guys that we haven't talked really a whole lot about here tonight. And I think a big reason is because they've been the ones that have been able to avoid the 2 big wrecks so far.
Yeah, you mentioned David Body right there in the 6th battling machine. He was running about 10th position. I was watching them back just now in that wreck right there, and he kind of was in that 10th position on the inside lane. They all piled up in front of him, and they literally bounced off each other and cleared the waters for him. He kind of just stayed right there in the bottom lane, drove right through the accident completely unscathed. So really fortunate luck so far for him in that number 6 machine is that he takes that runs when it gets on the front row. But those guys behind him, Bronson Stafford, took his fast repair there, I believe, got involved in an incident again. So he probably took his fast repair right there in the 4th position currently. And, now all these guys who came down pit road to kind of fix their cars, you only have 3 cars, actually, up on that outside lane. So the inside lane, obviously, going to be difficult to, overcome with all those cars in the numbers game, if you will, just being down there in the bottom lane.
See if we can quickly run down the list of drivers now with what will be 12 laps to go that have used their fast repairs. Bronson Stafford, as you mentioned, Joey Chapman, Michael Norman, Robert Kenny. We already documented him taking his fast repair on during the first wreck. Matthew Rodriguez, Connor Holden, John Cannon-Zarrow, Tristan Maher, Tim Connolly, Cam Caldwell, Mike Tellier, Mark Jones, and David Durand, all a fast repair in the hole. We saw Tim Connolly get the wave around. He and Cam Caldwell will be battling for the free pass here, as it's going to be Shane Tyrion on the outside line with Bronson Stafford versus Dylan Body and Joey Chapman on the inside line. Tyrion ready to go. Doesn't look like that inside line was ready. Bronson Stafford and Shane Tyrion, they're going to have themselves a pretty sizable gap here, and while we've seen the 2-car tandems hook up pretty well and generate some good speed, do you want to be this far out in front of the rest of the pack?
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, it looks like most of the field is pretty separated, so they'll probably all kind of accordion before they get to them, luckily. So for them too, it shouldn't be too big of a deficit. But yeah, really weird restart right there. Look at the 6 machine kind of fell off, and that's the thing, the leader restart on the outside lane right there and in control of the restart. It's kind of difficult for that inside car if they don't have triple monitors or VR, to see that car on their high side and make sure they're behind them. So it looked like he kind of backed way off, and as soon as he did that, not entirely sure if he was too far ahead, the number 8 machine kind of took that and jumped it and went on the restart. So obviously a bit of miscommunication right there. That kind of holds the inside lane up, and now they kind of get back up. Joey Chapman bringing the rest of the field up to the rear bumper of those 2 cars, and now in just one lap, they all kind of got back up front, and top 5 cars kind of all on a blanket here.
Yeah, these drivers, they'll start all conjoining back up together into one big pack. But you're right, that was maybe one of the strangest restarts we've seen all season. Maybe overall in this series, you had the top 2 break away by about a neighborhood over 3rd through 6th, and then it was about 2 counties before you got to the rest of our top 10. But now you got about a pack of 7 up here. Michael Norman joining them, Ty Smith, Robert Kenny about to join also. And if those guys further back outside of the top 10 continue to run single file, they'll more than likely catch up here. And usually when that happens, that's when you have to keep an eye out for the runs, because 2nd pack, 3rd pack, they're going to have so much momentum, they got to take it somewhere. And we've seen so far here tonight, drivers throwing some pretty gutsy blocks. Some of them have worked and some have led to a couple of big wrecks.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously with 10 laps to go here, it's coming across the start-finish line through the tri-oval. Second pack led by Bill Edwards, the number 50 machine. Little tore up on the number 50, involved in both the incidents so far here tonight, but luckily looks like they're back in the draft of the lead pack. A little bit of help there from Alonso Chicano and Dylan Poteet right behind in line with them. So now we're going to add some more cars into the fray. As you see the 34 Robert Kenny up front jump up around the Ty Smith machine. We both saw him make contact to cause that first incident, so obviously a little bit of bad blood there between those 2 drivers, but first Robert Kenny doesn't really seem to have much help there currently on the high side. Might need more cars to get up in his lead pack to try to make that line work.
No love for the points leader right now. He's trying to force his way down to that inside line, but Ty Smith, Dylan Body don't look like they're going to let him in, as Shane Tyrion going to lead us around here, and we are now at less than 10 laps to go. 9 on the board. You know, we talk about Bronson Stafford trying to find victory lane after having some good runs here. How about Shane Tyrion? One of 4 drivers so far this season with back-to-back top 10s, the other ones being Kenny Valvano and Jason Shuey, and he's third in the overall standings as Shane Tyrion, so it kind of comes down to who wants it more. Look in third place, Joey Chapman. He started on the pole for the season opener. He's been fast every week. He just hasn't had the finishes to back it up. He's 11th in the overall point standings and winless so far.
Yeah, Bill Edwards, now you mentioned that runner-up finish he had with this teammate there in the season opener at Daytona, and then the good result he had at Irish Superspeedway. We just talking about how he was kind of banged up in that second pack and pushed by Alonso Chicano. Well, they carried that run all the way to like 3 wide against the outside retaining wall, and now up to battling for the race lead. As you can see, good run on the outside of Bronson Stafford, and I'm intrigued to see how well the temps are holding up with that 95 machine. Not only with that front end damage he has, HendrickCars.com Chevy, but also after pushing them so long to try to get up here, it might be a little difficult for them to carry that without getting the 95 too hot. But currently still trying to glue the rear bumper to the 50 machine and just try to push it on the back straightaway here. The only laps to go.
We got 14 of our lead lap cars in this lead group. The next cars behind are actually battling for the dash for cash here in Matthew Rodriguez and Austin Grover. They're 15th and 16th. Their other 2 competitors, Duran and Tellier, are off the lead lap and subsequently out of the hunt. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. Right now, there's about 7 seconds separating Austin Grover from the back bumper of Matthew Rodriguez. So if all holds as it is right now, Rodriguez would win the dash for cash here tonight, but outside of the top 10.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. All those guys have just had really terrible luck here so far tonight, but obviously we still have some laps to go at Talladega, and anything for the most part can happen. As up front, Bill Edwards did get pushed out in front. A heck of a push there from Alonso Chicano right there behind him, and got that number 50 machine out in front of the 88 and now down to the inside lane. We can get some clean air in the nose, and now Dylan Poteet, one of those cars in the Valvoline Brigade we've seen here tonight, and all of those different Valvoline schemes on the Camrys. He's pushing the number 95 machine up there on the high side. And just really, really close quarters right now. Try and get everything you can to make sure you push. But you just got to be careful with that bumper hook in, as we've seen so far tonight, causing 2 incidents. It's just super easy to do in these cars, and especially easy to do once you get to the end of the race.
You know, it's kind of inconspicuous, but I can see a little bit of damage on the right front spoiler area, the splitter area rather, on that 95 of Alonso Chicano, and obviously that I would think would hurt the downforce of that car. Would that affect the momentum the outside line could possibly get, or does that really not affect a car?
Yeah, it definitely will probably affect the drag for sure, down the straightaway, all the air traveling underneath that car. But for the most part, I've seen, these are kind of older, outdated cars, so I'm not entirely sure how up-to-date they are on aerodynamic platform on iRacing, but definitely seems like maybe those 2 damaged cars up front kind of holding up the second lane as they're kind of just glued the rear bumpers in both the inside and the outside lane. But Bill Edwards making the most of it down in the inside lane with a little bit more damage, it looks like, on that spoiler than the 95 machine has. But definitely doing a nice job, just kind of keep the way up front. And, surprisingly, they're able to get up there pretty easily considering, how much those cars are probably affected by that damage.
Take a look at who's pushing him on that outside line. Second start of his career, Dylan Poteet was up inside the top 10 for most of the race last week in his debut, but was caught up in a wreck on the final lap. He's trying to help push that 95 to the race lead. Bill Edwards has Shane Tyrion, and there is Kyle Lewis getting out of the way of the race leaders. So that is going to put him at least, it's going to put him a lap down now in the 17th position. So now make it 3 drivers battling for the lucky dog spot. But while we're watching the side-by-side battling going up here at the front, look in the middle of the pack. That was what I was talking about. Ty Smith, I was noticing a couple of guys really generating some energy in the middle portion of the field. And I think that's Joey Chapman who had to back out on the apron because of it.
Yeah, it's some contact there between the 5 and the 81. Got the 81 loose and out of control, and he had to tuck down the apron to keep control of the 81 Toyota Camry. So unfortunately, just really unfortunate luck there kind of forces him out of the pack, and he's going to be trying to look to catch a caution, which I'd have to assume the way these guys are racing up front might be sooner rather than later. But his number 5 machine now looks 3 wide around the outside of one of the Valvoline cars. So obviously those 2 aren't working together, but the 4 in the line behind him might be the 95 Alonso Chicano, desperate for a win here in this series. Tries to throw a block at Dylan Poteet, and unfortunately just can't quite get it done. And now he's kind of left out in the second roll in the middle.
Here comes the Valvoline Brigade, the 31, the 5, the 4, all nose to tail, high, wide, and handsome. The other Valvoline car is down the inside line, that being Dylan Body in the 6th. Look at Kenny. He sees the momentum on the top side. He jumps up there. Shane Tyrion jumps up. Bronson Stafford jumps up, and all of a sudden, Bill Edwards looks in his rearview mirror. There's nobody there.
Those three teammates who saw them working together to get the win last week at the finish, 3 and 4 wide up the outside lane at Irish Superspeedway, is now, speaking of 4 wide, Alonso Chicano shoves his way in between Bill Edwards and Robert Kenny, gets his way down to the inside lane and kind of separates those three teammates. Is now the Valvoline Brigade up on the outside lane, draining the outside wall, trying to get a run down the back straightaway, and they can get some more cars up there. Vince Valvano trying to help them up there in the outside. I might just kind of help them get the way to the front, as now Shane Tyrion jumps up to the middle lane in front of Robert Kenny to try to keep him up in the middle of that front pack.
Open up the door with Shane Tyrion. Bronson Stafford goes to the inside with help from Chicano. Poteet still up on the top side. Our first caution came out due to an errant bump, but coming to 2 laps to go, do you even let yourself think about that? Is this time to push and just hope that you don't hook the guy in front of you?
Pretty much. That's all it really comes down to. Obviously, these guys know, for the most part, exactly what they're doing and how articulated they have to be to make sure they're squared up and try to maximize the pushes. And obviously, if you turn that car sideways, it's going to lose a lot of speed. So you therefore want to push it too hard and scrub some speed off with that outside lane. Those two cars are practically tandem all the way through the corner. The number 5 pushing Dylan Poteet, trying to get him clear to the back straightaway, which it looks like he'll be able to do. The question is, does he leave his teammate out to dry on the high side, or does he try to get down in front and try to block them in those 2 lanes?
Heading into 3 and 4, white flag this next time by, but 3 and 4 is where our 2 cautions have taken place. Will we get back to the start-finish line? At least for the moment, they all keep it pointed in the right direction. Poteet down in front of Stafford. Stafford goes down below the double yellow line. Chicano goes with him. The momentum's going to go to Stafford and Tyrion as Poteet goes from 1st all the way back to 7th. White flag in the air. This time, Tyrion leads him back.
Contact right there, 95 gets on the apron and kind of gets bumped from Dylan Body. Then 6 machine, more contact. Dylan Poteet goes around off the nose of Bronson Stafford. After some contact with Bill Edwards, it's now Shane Tyrion tries for the block, and Bill Edwards for that 3rd position as they work their way down the back straight. Robert Kenny in the exact same position he was in last week, leading, trying to defend all 4 lanes. It's Vince Valvano with a huge wreck. All the leaders wreck.
5 up into the air. I believe the 4 has gotten through. Michael Norman on the apron. He's going to clear for the top spot. Help from the lap machine of David Duran. He's going to have a lap car between himself and Connor Holden. Norman out of turn number 4 with the race lead.
And he's going to get a bump here for the 24 machine. David Duran basically just protect him from that number 4 machine back there behind him. Is now coming through the travel. Michael Norman, we mentioned last week how close he's been to victory lane. He's going to get his first career TNR Superspeedway Series victory here in the first half of doubleheaders at Talladega. What a job missing that wreck, and what a just perfect situation there. The 24 machine giving the push there to the check flag.
You say it so many times at Superspeedways, you just got to be in the right place at the right time, and that exemplifies Michael Norman here tonight. I talked to him last week after iRacing Superspeedway and said, man, we should have won that race. Well, he only had to wait 7 days to find victory lane, as he's going to come around and get to do his first victory burnout celebration here in the TNR Sunday Superspeedway Series. And after that, there's a lot to cover with what happened on the back straightaway. A lot of air being caught underneath the 5 of Ty Smith, who amazingly enough crossed the line, still inside the top 10 and 8th.
Yeah, that was wild. It looked like Robert Kenny was going to be kind of the odd man out, sitting 4 wide there. Vince Valvano got on the outside retaining wall, and as soon as that happened, the 88 kind of made contact with the 5 machine, and unfortunately just kind of hooked him down into Robert Kenny, and the 4 machine, Connor Holden, got turned sideways into the outside retaining wall and bounced off it, kept it straight. It looked like for a moment there was going to have a chance of the victory as the 20 more machine, Michael Norman, about hooked himself, trying to come back across the track, to get back on the racing surface. But just, yeah, you mentioned a right place, the right time. Michael Norman, a good job just kind of cutting low. He did get a lot of front-end damage right there out of the incident. Once again, the 24 machine giving him that push in the assist across the checkered flag, just definitely helped him kind of secure that win.
Let's drop back and take a look at a couple of replays here. By the way, another driver that made his way through all the carnage, Matthew Rodriguez, crosses the line in 7th, and he is the winner of the Dash for Cash here tonight. locks himself into the Dash for Cash battle in the season finale at iRacing Superspeedway. But I mean, this was just your typical chain reaction wreck. Didn't matter if you were in the middle, outside line, inside line. There was so much hooking going on that even our race leader at the time, Robert Kenny, couldn't avoid getting collected up.
Yeah, you mentioned about Rodriguez right there. He was about half a lap down when that wreck happened. He was across the start-finish line and hit the white flag when they all piled up on the back straightaway back in the 15th place, and he kind of just didn't lift, drove right through the accident scene, and made it up to P7, 15 seconds behind our race winner. So that's a heck of a job right there. Matthew Rodriguez is kind of being, in a lucky position to get all those cars and all those positions. But yeah, definitely just Michael Normer. What a great job by him. We mentioned last week. Quite literally how much he runs up front and all those cars that, seems like they are on the verge of victory lane every single week. And luckily for him, it pays off big for him. And best part is he's a second chance again right after this.
Wow, there were a lot of drivers that caught air there. Gleason, Chicano, of course, Ty Smith. Let's take a couple of onboards with some drivers here that were able to get through the carnage. A couple of drivers that looked like they were going to have some pretty mediocre finishes, and Joey Chapman, who had a great save in the closing stages. Same for Bronson Stafford. They're going to finish up in 5th and 6th respectively, and I think maybe one of the guys right here that was in the lead pack that did the best job getting through got a nice look at the underside of Ty Smith. But I mean, look at Bill Edwards. Kind of looks like a football linebacker, just pushing his way through the offensive line and muscling his way into the top 5 to finish in 4th.
Yeah, Mark Jones on those cars, fortunately, he was 2 laps down, but he kind of just forced his way out on the outside lane and kind of got pretty much out of that, nice and unscathed. And, all those cars, Jason Shuey had a nice miss right there to get himself onto the podium about 5 seconds behind a race winner. And that's Talladega. Sometimes you have a big crash coming across the checkered flag, but, sometimes that happens a little bit earlier. And with no cautions on the last lap here in iRacing, you get pretty spread out race results like that, and it's pretty wild.
Well, it was a scramble to get back to the line for a number of drivers. Norman and Holden were really the only two that made it back, that really got through the wreck or didn't get held up by it. Jason Shuey is going to bring it home in 3rd place, 20 spots up from his 23rd position starting spot. Great performance for him. So he's got those 10 bonus points for most improved position here tonight. Bill Edwards in 4th, Joey Chapman in 5th. Bronson Stafford, Matthew Rodriguez, Ty Smith, Alonso Chicano, and Robert Kenny complete the top 10. It's going to be interesting to see between Bill Edwards and Robert Kenny who's going to be the points leader after this one, heading into our second Dega race coming up momentarily. And these were the other drivers that also tried to limp it back to the start-finish line. Poteet in 11th, Body, Terrian in 12th and 13th. Belvano, Grover, and Gleason were the last drivers to finish on the lead lap. And then, of course, these guys, Caldwell, Kyle Lewis, Tim Connolly, Mark Jones, they've all got another chance to be able to leave Talladega with a decent finish, as this first race did not go the way that they were planning. Mike Tellier, tough break there for him, and David Duran, of course, as well. They're multiple laps down. The defending champ has just not been able to get out of the gate here in Season 2.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously that second race, very rare situation to have the only doubleheader on the season. It's great for those guys who kind of had some bad luck to get a turnaround and hopefully try to, rebound from that. And, those guys who finished up front probably wish they had a little more time to celebrate and be content with what they just finished. But, definitely going to be interested to see how these guys kind of shake it up here for the second race.
Well, we're going to be talking with some of our top 3 finishers here as we start to get things shifted over to the second race of the evening. So why don't we kick things off with the driver of the number 3 finishing P3 here in the first Dega race. Let's talk with Jason Shuey. Hey, Jason, Lucas and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
I'll tell you what, man, we know that these Superspeedway races, they always bring about exciting finishes. Usually it ends up coming down to being in the right position on the final lap. You certainly were there as you're able to bring it home in the 3rd position. But, I mean, describe from a driver's point of view what it's like when all that carnage is going on around you and how you've got to strategize even to make sure you get through the wreck unscathed.
Yeah, I kind of figured they were going to wreck on the back straightaway the last lap, so I just stayed along the wall, and they all went to the bottom, and I got through the wreck.
And we were talking about all night long about how the doubleheader, basically a full Talladega race split up into 2. We were talking, early in the event, obviously with all the crashes we saw, it kind of shook the entire field up. But for the most part, without having the need to come down pit road for fuel, what's kind of a strategy going into this race, knowing that you don't have a lot of time to make up lost ground if you kind of fall out of the, in the back of the pack and, trying to go the race for the race win. What's kind of just going through your mind, making sure that you keep your nose clean and try to get up front in the shortened race.
Well, you got to go at the same time, be aggressive, but at the same time, you got to stay out of the wrecks when they do happen. I got caught up there at the beginning of that one. I didn't want to have to use the fast repair. I saved it for the end, and lucky I didn't need it.
Do you feel a sense of urgency in the field here? Because we've seen in the past with the 57 lap races at Talladega that we had last season, drivers would be aggressive early on, but then they'd kind of settle things out. We didn't really see a settling point in this one with drivers realizing it was just a limited number of laps before that checkered flag. So, do you feel that kind of energy when you're in the field? And with that being said, I mean, how do you then prepare yourself for a second going at it?
Yeah, with it being shorter races, it seems like they stayed 2 and 3 wide the whole race.
Well, Jason, congratulations on cutting your way through the field. Start 23rd, finishing the third position. That seems to be your MO, being at the back and being right up there at the front when it matters the most. Congratulations on a great performance here. Hopefully we see you follow it up, maybe finish a couple positions better and find victory lane in the second upcoming race. But we're now going to turn the mic over to you for some thank you sponsors and shoutouts.
I want to thank FRN for broadcasting and some of my sponsors, Firehouse Grill, First Choice Computers, Larry's Lawnmower Repair Shop. So thanks, and we'll go for the second race, see if we can't finish better.
As Jason Shuey, he kicks the night off with a podium finish, third place in the first Dega race. Congratulations once again, and best of luck. Hopefully we get to talk to you again later on tonight.
All right, thanks.
And we talked about a number of drivers tonight making their debuts. How about a debut for a guy second place here tonight for Connor Holden? Hey, Connor, Lucas, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Howdy, partners.
Well, man, I'll tell you what. I mean, we talked about it here this evening. It was going to be wild with these shorter Dega races. What a specific race to come in and make your debut. But, man, we saw that you were strong there, hooked up with a bunch of Valvoline cars on that top side, worked your way to the front, almost pulled off this victory. But, I mean, describe that final lap.
Well, my goal was to help, any of those Valvoline cars. We work really good together, especially me and Ty. And I thought coming off two, I thought we would have had them, and then I think that 5 and the 88 just made contact and calamity after that. But it was a really good showing for all of us. It was a lot of fun.
It was like all night long, but the double header and the shorter events. And we saw, unfortunately, got involved in those early incidents. Had to take your fast repair just past the halfway point, and with the halfway point in this race only being about 15 laps in, with just over 10 laps to go into the restart. Obviously, the 24-car field here tonight at Talladega, it's a little more difficult to work your way through the field. Just talk about trying to work your way back through the field with your teammates. We saw all three of you kind of up there on the outside lane, just kind of train the wall, trying to get that run around the rest of the field. Talk about the kind of communication you guys have to keep to get that third lane working and try to get your way up to the front.
Yeah. So on the restart, I mean, I don't know if Dylan. I think Dylan might have just got a little bit of a slow start, but after that, we all got going. And once the field got back together, it wasn't terribly hard to catch the field, but I felt like passing was a problem tonight, or trying to. Once you got put on the bottom or something like that, you were just kind of stuck. But once we all three got lined together, we made our way to the top, and we almost got there. Dylan made his way to the lead. I don't know what happened going into one, but we were all three there. Dylan was there for a while too, and just it was an overall good race for us.
With a doubleheader, a lot of times if it's at a speedway, a short track, you can go in with a strategy, see if it works in the first race, and then either apply the same strategy or do something a little bit different in the second race. Is it the same way at a super speedway, or do you guys now have a slightly different game plan from what you had in the first 30-lap event?
Well, the way I look at it is a 30-lap sprint, so you don't really have much time to be wasting around. You kind of want to run up front, position yourself, and after that, you should. I mean, if you're up front, I think you're in the best spot. That's the best place to avoid a X2. So for me, it's kind of all or nothing. We wreck.
A heck of a way to make your debut here tonight. Second place in your first race, and maybe we'll see you get one position better in this upcoming second race. But now we're going to turn the mic over to you, let you thank some sponsors, do some shout outs.
Yeah, I want to thank Trap House Racing and I think the biggest sponsor on this car is Valvoline and the Body Shop. Thank both of them.
That's Connor Hold, and he's your runner-up finisher here tonight in the first of 2 Talladega duels. Best of luck to you in that second duel, Connor, and good job here tonight, at least in this first one.
All right, thank you. Y'all have a good one.
Go down to victory lane. First time Michael Norman a winner here in the TNR Sunday Superspeedway Series. Hey, Michael, Lucas, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
What's up, guys?
Oh, man, I mean, you said it last week. Should have gotten that checkered flag at iRacing Superspeedway. Had to wait a week, but all right place, right time there. Out of turn number 2, down the back straightaway. I mean, did it just kind of fall into place for you? Did you have a strategy of where to go if they wrecked on the final lap? Because a lot of times we know at the super speedways, a lot of times you find yourself in a position, it's all circumstantial, and you kind of look around and figure out, hey, how did I get here?
Honestly, I didn't even see the wreck happening until it was happening. I was behind the 50. I was giving him a push. I was just kind of hoping that he didn't have somebody in front of him, so I was just going to kind of push him, see if we couldn't get somewhere. And next thing I know, everyone's spinning and crashing, so I just turned to the inside, which is probably where I got my nose damage from, and I didn't get hooked. I was like, okay, let's get back up on the track. And the next thing I knew, oh hey, look, there's the lead. So, and then I had the 24 behind me, so thanks a lot to Duran for pushing me there. But yeah, my adrenaline's going, so it's hard to breathe right now.
Yeah, you mentioned him Duran right there behind it, kind of with a clean car, able to kind of continue to push you and just give you, that security ahead of that 4 machine. We see that quite often happen at Talladega where the field wrecks, so then it's kind of who's left to race for it. And, just thinking, to come back up across the racetrack, trying to sneak in front of the 4 machine. Did you know he was up there, or did you think you were like the sole car to make it through? And almost a mistake, or was it kind of intentional to try to throw a block there?
I mean, I was just going. I wasn't gonna block him. I was told as he was pushing me that he's laps down, that we was kind of just stay there. So I had the cushion, but. This whole race was insane from the get-go, running 3 wide, which scares me immediately. Even with the fast repair, which I had to burn early on because when that big wreck happened, I kind of just scraped the wall, and when I did, it just spun me around for some reason. But all in all, it was really fun out there. Scary, but fun.
Obviously, congratulations tonight with winning your first career race, but also congratulations because with that win, it locks you into the dash for cash in the season finale at iRacing Superspeedway. So, with that under your belt as well, I mean, what's the expectations when we get to that season finale? Are you going to be more focused on winning that dash for cash? Are you focused on more consistency to try and battle for this championship? Because you're also up there in the point stands, and this win's just going to continue to propel you up there inside of the top 10.
Well, honestly, I didn't really think about that. I'm not really thinking about points. I'm just kind of coming out here to have fun, really. It's I never know if I'm gonna be able to race the next race because of my work schedule, and I know for sure I'll be there next week, but the week after that is an unknown. So that's the tough part. But with the win up there, I'm glad I can get it done. Out there, I was really hoping for it. I've been praying for a top 3 so I can come talk to you guys at the end of each race. But luckily today, I got my top 3. It just happened to have been a win.
Well, tonight, 2 races at Talladega. We'll see if maybe you can go 2 for 2 and sweep the weekend here at the high banks of Talladega Superspeedway. Best of luck there. But now we're going to turn the mic over to you for some victory lane. Thank you, sponsors, and shout-outs.
All right, well, I want to thank Matthew Rodriguez for getting me to come over and race in this series, my first online. He also runs this league. I want to thank you guys, FRN, for broadcasting, as always. And Seth, thank you personally for this scheme, even though my name is on my banner twice, and Matt Rod has a conniption fit about it sometimes. And I just want to thank Ford, being the only Ford in this field to finish in the top 10. And I'm looking forward to get out in there and trying to get another W.
That's Michael Norman. Got to burn it down here in the first race of the evening at Talladega Superspeedway. We'll see if he can follow it up with another one here in mere moments in race number 2. Best of luck, Michael. Congrats on your first career victory here in the series.
Thank you so much, guys. Hope to talk to you again.
I also want to just give a little bit of a shout out to the league owner, Matthew Rodriguez, for the race names here tonight. Michael Norman winning the Rush for the Bird 75, and we're now preparing for the Dash for the Stuffing 75 coming off the heels here of Thanksgiving. So very creative race names here tonight. Kind of makes me chuckle when I put them into the graphics for this evening's festivities. But, you know, you kind of look so far here at the season. 2 out of the 3 drivers that have gone to victory lane in the first 3 races, first career wins for Hesgard and Michael Norman. Robert Kenny, the only repeat winner. And we've been talking about the struggles of David Duran and Austin Grover. Saw Mike Tellier hit some problems here in this first Talladega race. It kind of feels like we're looking at a changing of the guard, but at the same time, it's Superspeedway series. So it's very difficult to be able to carry consistency from one season over to a following season.
Yeah, definitely. It almost seems like anybody who has success kind of has the burden come with with the bad luck to kind of offset it, if you will. And so, yeah, David Duran obviously with that unfortunate mistake of not checking his faster pair after getting involved in that lap 5 incident and basically having his race be over, only a few laps into the race. That's really unfortunate. So obviously, luckily for him, he has a second chance. And again, like I mentioned earlier, a really unique situation. Kind of just take that, learn from it, and, carry that into, 5 minutes later, get in the next session and just jump in and try to rebound. So, for the guys like Michael Norman did really well, they're looking to try to continue that luck and that streak and again, get another good finish. But, all those guys who had bad luck there, David Duran especially having bad luck so far, 3 races into the season, he's looking to just kind of carry that and hopefully come back with a vengeance, if you will, and just try to find his way into the top 5, I would assume, at least at the end of this event.
Moments away from what's going to be our second qualifying session here tonight, another 5-minute open qualifying session for these drivers. So far, 3 different pole sitters in the first 3 races. We'll see if we go a perfect 4 for 4, but let's talk a little bit more about the recap of race 1. 3 big wrecks, only 2 of them bringing out cautions, with the last one being on the final lap, and so drivers are allowed to race back to the checkered flag. But I mean, with that being said, you're a driver that's already run 30 laps here at Talladega. You're getting ready to run another 30-lapper. What are some of the takeaways from that first race? What are some of the things you're focused on and looking for in the second one?
Yeah, definitely, just kind of noticing, where the intensity lies. And obviously, we know it's probably going to stay all the way through, but where it kind of, will pick up towards the end of the race, it's all about where you want to position yourself. A lot of those guys are going to see Michael Norman down there on the inside lane to kind of clear the seas, if you will, and get through the incident and kind of tuck down the apron and get out of the way. These guys are kind of, they kind of learned what they can do with the apron, the yellow line rule especially. And then, at the end of the race, what line you want to be in to get yourself, up front and in a position to obviously contend for the win. And we heard from Jason Shuey there earlier in his interview, being down the inside lane to kind of get boxed in, if you will. And, a lot of drivers, don't really feel comfortable going down on that apron with it just being a general rule of thumb across Superspeedway racing that it, can cause a lot of issues. A lot of these guys trying to look to maybe stay on that high side. We saw those 3 battling cars up there, do and just get that run. Maybe, it's a little more open waters up there and you kind of get yourself up front.
I was wanting to ask you this question. I think now's a good time to ask you, you talk about that double yellow line rule. We talk about how that's just another thing that drivers have to think about. You're always trying to figure out where the energy is, where the run's coming from, if you're going to try and pick it up, if you're going to try and block its momentum. But is there a point in the race, or is it the entirety of the race, where you end up looking for an escape route, kind of figuring if a wreck takes place at this particular point, this is where I think I need to go to make sure I avoid the wreck? Because we saw there, when we talked with Michael Norman, he said, I didn't even know that the wreck was taking place until I made that move to the inside. Next thing I know, I look to driver's right, and there's a couple cars airborne. So, do you strategize to find an escape route, or do you basically have to just kind of, when the incident occurs, then make your move?
Yeah, it definitely depends on the driver, what kind of position they're in. Obviously, these guys who kind of just joined the series with the Ford machine we heard there, these guys who kind of jumped in are just racing for race wins. Probably don't really think about it too much, but the guys who are racing for points and racing it, all season long, they definitely have, some form of the back of their mind at least of, try to position themselves, at least just stay clean and make it there to the end and, try to retain the points they're earning through the season. And a lot of drivers tend to have that tendency that the inside lane is the place to be, because if they start wrecking in front of you and around you, you have that apron to kind of just jump down there. Whereas if you're in the middle lane, especially, you're really boxed in. But on the outside lane, even, the wall is right there to kind of just block you from having much maneuverability to get around an incident. So a lot of guys do, especially towards the back of the field, kind of, hang out back there and try to keep it clean. They like to especially stay down the inside lane to, just use that apron as their escape route. But, once again, those guys who just kind of are up there, really aggressive and trying to, increase their track position, obviously, they're kind of just looking for any lane they can get to get in front.
We're going to see if in a few moments here, I thought we were going to be able to, he's working on some admin stuff right now. We were going to talk with our Dash for Cash winner, Matthew Rodriguez. Maybe we'll get a chance to hear during this qualifying session at some point in time. But with Matthew Rodriguez winning the Dash for Cash, Michael Norman winning race number 1, they're now going to comprise 50% of the Dash for Cash field in our season finale at iRacing Superspeedway. The other 2 drivers that will join them are going to be the 2 highest finishers in this upcoming race. So I believe Matthew Rodriguez has stated he's going to be off-tracking in this one, so he will not be in the field. Michael Norman has already locked himself in. So any 2 drivers not named Michael Norman that finish the highest in the finishing results in the second race, they will make up the 3rd and 4th drivers that will battle for the Dash for Cash, the second and final Dash for Cash in the iRacing Superspeedway season finale, as drivers right now out there putting down their qualifying lap, seeing who's going to be able to get the pole position for our second Dega duel. One thing I'm kind of wondering here too, and maybe this doesn't apply because of it being what we call the sprints, but there were alliances, we saw for sure, in the first race. If an alliance goes wrong in duel number 1, do they mend fences and work together in duel 2, or do you see alliances break from Superspeedway race to Superspeedway race?
Yeah, definitely can, definitely going to have some, hot blood between them, just making sure that, they try to stay together as a team. And the biggest thing with Super Speedway racing is that you need help no matter what. It is almost impossible to kind of make it through a race by yourself without any friends out there, or at least people who respect you and are willing to push you. So, any help you can get, you'll take. And a lot of guys, seem to always find their rivals in the pack and push them. But even if it definitely can contribute to maybe some hurt feelings or whatever, but you're willing to, you're basically willing to do whatever you can to get your way up front, no matter who you have to work with. And so I'm sure a lot of these guys who had incidents there, and especially you mentioned teammates, they're just going to try to make sure that they keep their cool and try to get a second chance at it and make full use of it.
Looks like we still will have 24 drivers taking the green flag in this second duel. We're losing Matthew Rodriguez, but we are gaining Christopher Tate, who's going to make his second start on the year, finished 17th in the season opener at Daytona. And the point standings have been updated after the first Talladega race. Robert Kenny, still the points leader, 26 points over Michael Norman, our winner from the first Dega race here tonight. Jason Shuey jumps up to 3rd. He's 27 points back. Bill Edwards and Bronson Stafford right now the top 5, 54 points separating the top 5. Shane Tyrion drops to 6th. Ryan Hesgard is now dropping down the running order to 7th. Joey Chapman up a few spots to 8th. Vincent Valvano and Alonso Chicano, they complete the top 10. Looks like we finally have our Dash for Cash winner from the first Dega race, Matthew Rodriguez. Matt, I mean, obviously, it was looking like you were going to win the Dash for Cash in the closing stages. You had about 5, 6, 7 seconds over your closest competitor, but then Big Wreck takes place in the back straightaway, and you're up there in the 7th finishing position. So, I mean, talk about the chess match, though, between you and those other 3 Dash for Cash drivers, because it kind of seemed like Dega wasn't playing any favorites.
I will admit, I wasn't paying attention to Dash for Cash position until like the last few laps. So it's like, man, I wonder who's going to get this money. And I look down and like, well, Duran's dead. And like, well, I'm looking over here and I think Mike's dead. He's talking to me off track. That's fine. And I see Austin like 7 seconds back. He's not going to get to me. I'm like, am I seriously going to win this? Like halfway dying. And I heard everyone was wrecking on the last lap. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to steal a win. And I crossed the line in 7th and I was like, man, this is a little bit more depressing than I thought.
I mean, still a great performance for you. You're able to pick up that Dash for Cash money and, of course, locking yourself into the Dash for Cash in the season finale as well. Now, we understand you're going to kick back and do some off-track adminning now. What's some of the fears that these guys are going to be dealing with now with what they just experienced in the first race?
Joke's on them. I'm gonna be racing.
Oh,
I'd say all I know is I was going down the front straightaway. I was in like second or third, and I got hooked by the 95. I was like, God damn! I I got hooked. Like, man, this sucks. I don't know when it's time to go. I was never good at Talladega. Like, the only reason I've ever won Talladega was off of fuel mileage. It's just all that time that usually those like 60 or 50 lap segments that we would have to play around and, hey, we ride around and feel each other out. It's like 30 laps. We got to go from the get-go. And you can't go too early because you're going to end up using your fast pair by like lap 5, and that's not going to be a fun occasion. I don't know whatever way to say it other than it's just chaos.
well, we'll see if maybe you can not only pick up a Dash for Cash win, but maybe pick up a victory here in the second Dega race as drivers getting ready to grid. So best of luck to you, and maybe we'll talk to you in victory lane in a little while.
That sounds good.
So Matthew Rodriguez, as we heard, is going to be taking part in this second race, and it looks like we are going to officially be having 24 drivers. So I'm not exactly certain who it was that we lost from the first race here to the second race. As mentioned, Christopher Tate in the field. So 24 drivers took the green in the first race, 24 drivers take the green in the second race, and we do go a perfect 4 for 4 as Shane Tyrion becomes the fourth driver to start from the inside of row number 1. He is the pole sitter for this second Dega race. He is going to be starting alongside of the... There we go, of the 61 of Bronson Stafford. We saw those two working together in the closing stages of the first race. Row 2 is going to find Cam Caldwell and Robert Kenny. Row 3 with Connor Holden, our runner-up finisher from the first race. Joey Chapman on the outside of row number 3 as we take a look here at the rest of the drivers that take time. There's Michael Norman, your winner of the first race, rolling off from the outside of row number 5. 13 drivers going to take time. Christopher Tate will be alongside of John Cannon Zarrow in row 7. Vincent Valvano, Mike Tellier, row 8. Dylan Poteet and Ty Smith in row 9. 19th place, Garrett Gleason and Matthew Rodriguez. The Dash for Cash winner here tonight will roll off from 20th place. Kyle Lewis, Austin Grover, Dylan Body, and Jason Shuey going to bring up the rear of the field. That's your 24 drivers preparing for our second race here tonight at Talladega Superspeedway. Well, we got an idea of what these drivers bring to the table, what type of racing we can expect, but I want to kind of bring up a little bit of a thing that has taken place in Daytona duels in the NASCAR Cup Series, where we see one race where it's absolutely chaotic. We then see another duel race where it's calm. Everybody kind of minds their P's and Q's. Are we in for something like that here? Now that drivers have gotten all that early adrenaline out in the first duel race, do we now kind of settle into a more strategic type second race, or do we go ham from the drop of the green flag here in race number 2?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to follow that. I'd have to assume once again, those guys who kind of had a bad race, the first half. That's the only difference, I guess, between this and the real life duels of the Daytona 500 and NASCAR is that you have, everybody's running their duel race, whereas this is all the drivers are coming back for a second time. So I think a lot of those guys who had really good races are looking to just kind of take it nice and easy. They were pretty content with what they just did. But those guys, once again, who are looking to try to rebound and have a second chance at it, they're going to be chomping at the bit all race on, I think. And a lot of these guys up front are among those few.
We had officially 2 cautions in the first Talladega race earlier on. We had 3 big wrecks. We'll see when we're going to have potentially our first caution here of our second Dega race. I believe it was lap 7 when the first caution came out in the first Dega race. So we'll see if they make it either past lap 7 or if we see the yellow flag wave prior to that. But also going to be interesting to see the alliances we have up here, because we know that Shane Tyrion, Bronson Stafford, Robert Kenny, they're all going to be working together. Can they control this race, all starting up in 3 of the top 4 positions? And of course, you've got drivers that finished well in the first race that are starting towards the rear of the field. Jason Shuey bringing up the rear once again in 24th, but he was able to work his way up to 3rd in the first race. So a lot of strategy going to play out here. Michael Norman looking for the Dega sweep. Normally at Daytona, we'd be growing green at this point. Start-finish line just a little ways down the road, so we will wait for the flagman to wave the green flag for the second race of the evening here at Talladega.
Green flag is going to come out for Shane Tyrion, Bronson Stafford on that front row. Now the second half of the Dega doubleheader is underway. 30 laps here for the second race in the duels, and now up through the gears they go. Bronson Stafford is a nice restart on the outside lane, and maybe some early team games trying to get each other in line with the number 34 machine. Robert Kenny also up there behind him. Might see the 88 try to get pushed out in front and jump up in front of that 61 machine.
See Bronson Stafford pulled down to the right side of Shane Tyrion's Toyota, trying to get that side draft, trying to get the run down the back straightaway, and it will work. He is going to, I think, clear himself into turn 3 with a big push from Robert Kenny. Now does he duck to the inside or stay up with the 34? He'll stay with the 34. Here comes Bill Edwards and Michael Norman. They're going to form a third line.
Just was not there, to get through that wreck clean lane. So now he's immediately looking for a rebound. Almost some contact right there with Joey Chapman as Robert Kenny now ducks underneath his teammate for the race lead. Will lead lap 1.
We ended up seeing early on in the first race a lot of drivers bouncing off each other, not a lot of room given. Doesn't look like they really learned anything in terms of giving space from that first event, as it's really close quarter racing up here inside of the top 5. Kenny with a push from Shane Tyrion. He's going to go to the point. Cam Caldwell gets out of dodge. David Duran's going to do the same. They're going to fade back. A guy moving up to the front, though, that's Christopher Tate, up 7 spots from his 20th position.
Yeah, and I believe the only car who did not participate in that first race, now in the second race. I believe he just got home, actually. A special shout out there. He's actually stationed in Camp Lejeune over here in North Carolina in the Marines. So he just got back home after being home for Thanksgiving weekend and immediately decided to jump into this and blow some steam off, and immediately already showing that he's a contender up front, even on control.
Robert Kenny now leading this race, and we talked with Kenny last week after his victory at iRacing Superspeedway about his plans with the championship, the consistency to try and win the title, and he said, well, I don't really let myself think about that. I just go into every race with the mentality of go out there and win, and so far it has served him well. Still the points leader over Michael Norman, and trying to see if he can get those bonus points for leading the most laps here tonight, of course, as well, trying to 4 races in be the first multi-time winner on the season.
Yeah, a bit unintentional right there. Look at the 34 machine, got a bit of a push from the 44. Christopher Tate got turned sideways, and that allowed his 2 teammates to drop down in front of him now on the outside, from the outside lane, to the inside lane. And now Joey Chapman, another one of their teammates, he's
interesting.
Race at the moment, pretty early on, still only lap 3.
It's interesting. We notice a couple of drivers that have faded to the back. A number of the Valvoline cars, Ty Smith, Dylan Body, Dylan Poteet, have all kind of lingered themselves around the 21st to 23rd position. So we're talking to guys about, does it change up your strategy from race 1 to race 2? These were drivers that we saw pretty much working their way to the front of the field early on in the first Dega race. Now they've elected to kind of Joe Gibbs it and ride around at the back for the time being. Bronson Stafford continuing to show the way. Shane Tyrion now on the outside, kind of role reverse of how they started this race. Tyrion was on the inside line of row 1 with Bronson Stafford. Stafford has picked up Chris Tate as his drafting partner up top. It's going to be Shane Tyrion with Robert Kenny. Joey Chapman, 3rd car on the outside line. Connor Holden, the runner-up finisher from the first race. He's 3rd car on the inside line. And for the time being, it doesn't seem like either line's being able to get an edge.
Yeah, definitely. And back there, some contact with the travel. Mike Taylor got in and Matthew Rodriguez slammed the inside wall really hard, and there'd only be a single car incident. No caution flag was waved. Unfortunately for our Dash for Cash winner from that first race, he's going to be coming from the rear here, lost the drafts and has a tore up machine. So unfortunately for him, he'll probably have to come down, take his fast repair, and go a lap down. But back up front, these guys still 2x2 for race lead. Like we mentioned, those 2 teammates kind of on the inside and the outside lane, just trying to control at the moment. And for the most part, nobody's really too aggressive to make it through wild, but it's still only being lap 6. So these guys are going to just try to keep the way up front and be as good as possible.
Yeah, that is a tough break there for Matthew Rodriguez. The 7th place run that he had moments ago in the first Dega race was his first top 10 on the season. multi-time winner last season, was in the hunt for the championship in the finale at Daytona, but it has not been a great start to the year for the driver of the 57. As you mentioned, though, that Dash for Cash winner moments ago, so a little bit of a silver lining in that gray cloud as he has now limped his number 57 Toyota to pit lane. Looks like he's taken on his faster pair, returns back to the track, albeit one lap down. And how about Austin Grover in the 83? I think it's pretty much the first time we've talked about him all night long. He was a bit of a non-factor in the first Dega race. Now he's up here inside of the top 5. That's a guy, much like David Duran, that wants to get his season turned around. Was strong last year, but has not been able to get out of the gate here in season 2.
Yeah, as I mentioned, you mentioned in that first race, kind of not really a front runner, and honestly, I don't think he's been up front. We haven't mentioned his name too much this season. Just kind of had some poor luck through the incidents this season. 3 races in already, and so both of our championship contenders last season, or all of them, I should say, the top 4, all have had just terrible luck to start the season. And so Austin Grover, runner up in that championship fight last year, looking to try to rebound, here in the second half of the race, and hopefully he can just, get his way up there towards the end as we get close to the end of the season.
We mentioned about the fact that so far here this season, 2 out of the last 3 races, a driver has picked up their first career win in the series. Norman, the most recent, just a little while ago. That's got to give a little glimmer of hope to guys like Tyrion, Stafford, Chapman, Holden, the aforementioned Grover, Kyle Lewis, drivers that are still chasing their first checkered flag of this series.
Yeah, most definitely. And obviously, so far 3 races, 3 different winners. These guys all, really competitive. There's so many cars up front every single race that, just it all kind of gets shaken up. And Robert Kenny already has, kind of proven so far. 3 races incomplete, and now been in the 4th race here at Talladega. He already picked up a checkered flag last week at Irish and Superspeedway. It was leading there to the back straightaway just a few mere minutes ago in the first Talladega race before getting collected that last lap incident. So obviously the points leader has just put a really consistent run together so far, and hopefully for him, obviously, it continues to pay off. And maybe some of these guys trying to, obviously his teammates are going to help him, but the rest of these guys would be trying to plot something against that team, try to separate a little bit, and kind of knock Robert off his throne at the moment.
Another driver that struggled in the first Dega race was John Cannon Zarrow, finished in the 22nd position in that race. He is now entered into the top 10. The Texaco Haviland Ford there, I believe he is 5th on that inside line. Now make it 4th with Shane Tyrion shifting up to the top side, trying to throw a block on Robert Kenny. Now we're going to take it 3 wide to the start-finish line. Toyota versus Toyota versus Toyota. Stafford gets the edge at the stripe.
Kenny up there with the assist from Rowe. Christopher Tate gets up on the outside retaining wall. Just as I say that, Kyle Lewis, unfortunately nowhere to go, runs right in the back of the number 44 machine, and a lot of damage for both of those cars, along with the 00 of Mark Jones, who also got collected in that. And everybody manages to keep it straight, luckily, for the rest of the field. Nobody else gets collected, and the green flag stays out here, but definitely a lot of tore-up machines after that.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage on the 00 of Mark Jones. Got into the right rear quarter panel of Kyle Lewis, who was into the back of Christopher Tate. And we saw in the first Dega race that outside wall just kind of suck in Shane Tyrion, and it did the same thing there to Christopher Tate. Credit to all those drivers, though, for not only keeping it straight, but keeping it up there and allowing an escape route for other drivers behind them, because a lot of times we see with that huge loss of momentum, a lot of drivers stack up and a big wreck ensues. So amazing that we are still under the green flag. Tremendous credit to all those guys.
Yeah, definitely a bit of a sacrifice to kind of, keep it up on the wall like that and lose at that time. But as you mentioned, managed to keep everybody else, unscathed, and now they're all fighting up front. Austin Grover, we're just talking about him, as Bronson Stafford gets a bump there from his teammate Shane Tyrion down the back straight. Austin Grover now contending for the race lead, led that last lap, got the bonus point out of that, and now getting a push from Connor Holden, the runner-up from just the first half of the Talladega race just a few minutes ago. Looking to try to get one spot better as he pushes him down the front straightaway. And once again, those teammates kind of all lined up in the outside lane. Tough to beat so far during the course of this event.
Kind of interesting that this race is going to theoretically be our tiebreaker race on the season, as Chevrolet, Ford, and Toyota, the 3 manufacturers in the series, all have 1 win apiece here in Season 2. So we'll see which manufacturer is going to be the first multi-time manufacturer winner when we get this checkered flag.
Yeah, Toyota definitely has just a bit of an upper hand on that front with all the different Toyota cameras we have in the field every week. But yeah, definitely one of them goes outside right there in front of Shane Thierry, and number 4 Connor Holden mentioned just finished runner-up, looking for get one spot better, and immediately proving that he's not going to just sit around and ride and be content. As now gets thrown blocked by Bronson Stafford, goes through out on the outside, but unfortunately, the 88 machine lines up with his teammate in the middle lane. The 4 gets held out with nobody behind him up there to help him.
It's usually Chevrolets versus Toyotas. We usually have either 2 or 3 Fords in the field. I believe we have the most Fords here tonight that we've had the entirety of the season. Michael Norman, Vince Valvano are usually the mainstays for the Blue Ovals, but John Cannizzaro and Tristan Maher in the field here tonight as well. 3 of those Fords running up inside of the top 10 at this point in time, as one of them, at John Cannizzaro, number 58, trying to help keep Austin Grover out in the race lead. He's got the other Fords behind him of Valvano and Michael Norman. It's the Toyotas on the top side that prevailed down the back straightaway. Stafford clears for the top spot and shifts from top to bottom.
Shane Thierry looked like he tried to tuck in behind him right there, but wasn't quite clear of Austin Grover. And, nice kind of catch there, and notice by him to kind of stay up on that outside and avoid any of that danger, as he's going to stay up there with the 81 machine and Joey Chapman as they get a push through the tri-oval, and Bronson Stafford is going to lead lap 13 here as they come across the start-finish line. And once again, just, these guys up front, these teammates kind of continue to shuffle around with the mix of everybody else involved. But for the most part, it seems like they constantly just keep 2 of their cars up front. They can kind of control both lanes at the same time. And so I'm intrigued to see if some of these guys, Carazaro back there, trying to look to make it 3 wide up the outside lane. Once we get more cars, a lot of these guys riding the single file back here as well, about outside the top 10, trying to keep it nice and calm so far, only halfway through this event. They're just going to try to take it nice and easy, but as soon as we get more cars up here, that might help that 58 machine and try to make that 3-wide move up top like he's trying to do right now.
A couple of drivers making some moves just at the tail end of this lead pack. Bill Edwards has now picked up Connor Holden. Ty Smith is back there. Dylan Body and Dylan Poteet. Those are drivers that I mentioned about 10 laps ago that were running at the tail end of the field. Apparently now they feel it is go time as they're about to crack the top 10.
Yeah, all 4 of those Valvoline cars in sync together. And I'm not entirely sure if all 4 of them working together or not. We saw at least a few of them work together the last race, the 5 and the 4 machine especially. But they're all lined up nose to tail right now in numerical order as well, which is oddly satisfying. But as up front, 6 cars kind of seeing the battle for the lead. Save by Shane Thierry right there. Gets a huge shove from Joey Chapman and somehow held onto it and onto the race lead.
My goodness, that was amazing by Shane Thierry, who had his rear wheels lifted off the ground, skated from top to bottom, somehow cleared the nose of Bronson Stafford, and to your point, still up to speed and leading us back to the start-finish line. But I think we might have to check the heart rate of a couple of those guys up inside the top 5, because that was very nearly our first caution of the second race.
Yeah, what a save by Shane Thierry in the 88 machine, and somehow managed to get down in front of Bronson Stafford. As down that kind of scared everybody, I believe, out of the run on the outside lane. Vince Valvano up there with John Carazaro, the 2 only drivers up there. As now another Ford, Michael Norman, looks to try to make it back up there. Going to get around Austin Grover in 83. Now has some help from Joey Chapman, who I'm sure also is probably the most scared after, he was the car that turned him sideways. So he's taking it very easy as you see him just lift into the corner on where he pushes and how he pushes.
As of right now, 18 drivers are in this lead group. A couple of drivers have faded back from the lead pack, including David Duran, Tristan Maher. Mark Jones more than likely be the aero damage he sustained in the stack up with himself, Christopher Tate, and Kyle Lewis. But Jason Shuey and Mike Tellier have also dropped way back from the lead group, and I don't know if this was a case of maybe some other incidents taking place and maybe drivers getting up into the wall and losing momentum, or if they just decided to hang back and subsequently lost the draft of the lead pack. But these are a bunch of guys, about a good half dozen drivers, that want to see a caution come out sooner rather than later.
Yeah, you're talking about those cars kind of hanging on the back, 3 wide out the middle, those 4 Valvoline cars, all synced up, the 4, the 5, the 6, and the 31 on Dylan Poteet being the caboose of that train. They just went through it up the middle, went all the way from 10th place into turn number 1, now battling for the race lead off turn number 4, and how quickly things could change here at Talladega. That just proves it right there, as all 4 of those cars synced up in line get their way to the front.
Just saw Mark Jones in the 00 coming to pit lane, so apparently the aero damage too much to bear. He's come down and taken on his faster pair. He'll lose a lap, so right now He and Matthew Rodriguez would be battling for the free pass position. Should we see a caution, which at this point in time, based on the energy we're seeing now up in this lead group, it might be sooner rather than later. And let's bear in mind here, folks, that in the first race earlier on tonight, at this point in time, we were already 2 cautions in. These guys have managed to keep it clean up here at the front. Yes, we've had a couple of near misses, but so far, 18 laps completed, and we have not seen the caution just yet. That kind of says to me that these final 10 laps, maybe the final 5 laps, they are going to be crazy.
Yeah, that's how it usually works. The cleaner the race is, all the way to the end of the race, the more intense it's going to be to the finish for sure. And if we would somehow top what we just had last race, that'd be pretty intriguing. But, you know, 3 wide out for the race lead. Some of those Valvoline cars got separated right there. Looking at the 4 drop down on the bottom, the 5 went kind of to the high side. Looks like he actually might be just trying to drop out of the pack here and keep his nose clean. And I can't confirm all 4 of them in the team channel together, working together. So now Dylan Poteet going to try to push Dylan Body back up to the race lead, as now the 4 gets kind of shuffled up with the 88 machine. He's going to get picked up by his teammate here.
Joey Chapman going to stick it down below the double yellow line. We're going to be 3 wide with a car on the apron. Oh, and Chapman's going to pay the price. Austin Grover was still to driver's right. He was not obligated to let the 81 back in, and Chapman is going to drop from what was 3rd all the way back to the 15th, 16th position, as he had to get on the brakes, or else he would have more than likely slid up into traffic in turn 3.
Yeah, a little interesting position there. It looked like Austin Grover actually kind of drifted up a little bit off the bottom, and Joey Chapman kind of shoved his nose in there, and then Austin Grover actually kind of pushed him down onto the apron a little bit and kind of ran him out of the racetrack. So, oh no, the forward circuit from the field by his teammate somehow looks like, Carl Lewis.
Almost had everyone avoid the spinning Connor Holden. Lewis tags him at the very end. And with 10 laps remaining in our second Dega race, the caution will fly for the first time here in the second Dega duel. Let's go back and see what happened, as this is going to be interesting. Do you come down pit road and maybe take on some fuel just on the off chance that we have some overtime green-white checkers? Because we know they had the fuel to make it the full 30 laps, but just how much further past that can you go?
Yeah, they're definitely going to be saving fuel, and I would assume with only 10 laps to go here, or just under, actually, when we take the restart, they're probably going to try to avoid giving up in the track position, obviously. But unfortunately, it was actually a second follow-up incident as well. David Body, who turned the 4 machine around in front of the field, also got collected and turned sideways after that, trying to avoid the incident with Shane Tyrion. Luckily for both of them, they managed to keep their cars straight, and I believe didn't lose too much position or receive too much damage to both of those cars. But yeah, definitely could have been a lot bigger incident right there, considering that was the race leader who got turned in the middle of the corner.
As we take a look at it again, and I was kind of observing this when we saw it happen live, I was surprised that the Ford didn't go further down to that double yellow line when he and Dylan Body made the transition from top to bottom, and I think that's what kind of left that half lane open for the 6 to get to his left rear quarter panel.
Yeah, it's tough to say if he was trying to make a move to the inside of the 4, kind of crossing over for the top. It looked like they were both in sync trying to go down to the bottom. And unfortunately, just the 6 kind of misjudged, like you mentioned, that 4 machine being a little bit off the yellow line and just tagged him in the left rear as they were trying to get lined up together. But interesting to point out as well, during that incident, Kyle Lewis, we mentioned, unfortunately collecting his 18 machine into the 4, he kind of bumped the 95 Alonso Chicano into the back of our race winner just a few minutes ago, Michael Norman. So both of those cars received a lot of damage as well, especially the number 95 machine being all nose damage. So intrigued to see if those guys decide to come down and hit their fast bars. Most of the field actually will head their way down to pit road.
Yeah, take a look at this. Dylan Poteet, who was the race leader when the caution came out, leads just about the entire field. Actually, that is the entire field coming down pit lane. We'll see. I think this is more than likely just going to be topping off the fuel tank for most of these guys. Kind of wonder if that is the case, that these guys are thinking that we could, since we went, 20 laps under green flag conditions, that these last few laps are going to be very aggressive, possibly a couple more cautions, and they might have to plan for a couple of overtime green-white checkers. There were a few drivers, one driver, Ty Smith, who elected track position over the fuel, so he'll be the one to lead us back to green, and Matthew Rodriguez, who was the only car 1 lap down when the caution came out, he'll get the free pass. Mark Jones was 2 laps down at the time of caution, so new life breathed into the 57's chances of possibly winning this race with a handful of laps left to go.
Yeah, interesting to point out as well right there, a little bit of housekeeping. Looks like Shane Tyrion, who's the first guy off pit road, leads the field off of pit road, took not only fuel only, but also his fast repair. With only minimum damage to the right side of that car, I'm kind of surprised he decided to take that now and give up the opportunity to use it later if he gets involved in an incident. But obviously, he feels confident, just keep his nose clean out front. Lots of Chicano, I mentioned, got that nose damage, getting kind of pushed into that incident. Unfortunately, he also came down and took his fast repair after kind of overshooting his pit stall. So a few of those drivers, kind of paying a little bit risky with just under 10 laps to go, believing that they, that's their last chance to try to get the way up front and get them for this race win.
2 more drivers involved in that, also taking on their fast repair. Kyle Lewis in the 18, Connor Holden in the 4, and I believe that also the 6 of Dylan Body, yes he did, took on his fast repair. Another driver that took on a fast repair there was the winner of our first Dega race earlier on tonight, Michael Norman. So all those drivers mentioned are a fast repair in the hole here for what is going to be, I'll put this in air quotes, potentially our final restart of the evening, which will be with less than 10 to go. And look at this. Ty Smith is now going to come to pit lane. So he got himself at least some bonus points for a lap led. He's going to come down pit lane. Subsequently, though, he is taking a net loss of starting as the race leader. He's going to restart all the way back around the 22nd position. Now, I know that it's possible to work your way from the back to the front, and if you got the right drafting partners, you can do it in a hurry, but this is an interesting call by the 5.
Yeah, definitely shows that he wants those points, and considering he made his debut in just the last race at Talladega, I'm kind of surprised that he would take an approach like that. Must have either that or he second-guessed himself and felt like he could make it to the finish on fuel, then maybe thought better of it and just decided to kind of get behind the field and play it a little bit safer and make sure he's got a full tank of fuel. But not entirely sure. Also, keep in mind, Iverson rules, if you come down pit road after it's closed, I believe you get a black flag penalty. So I'm not sure if they have that different in the league for the rules, but for as far as Iverson's concerned, I believe you may have actually received the black flag right there. So that may have been a little bit more hurtful than he first imagined.
Now, I noticed that his teammates, Dylan Body and Connor Holden, also came down pit lane. They had already come down and taken on a fast repair, so probably coming down, topping out the fuel tank. So he will have some teammates at the rear of the field to be able to work with. At the front, Shane Tyrion's going to be the race leader. He's going to choose the top side with Cam Caldwell as his wingman. On the inside will be Joey Chapman. He'll have the Ford of Vincent Valvano behind him. 5th place will be Robert Kenny, Michael Norman in 6th, David Duran, Dylan Poteet, Mike Tellier, and Bronson Stafford will be the top 10. Christopher Tate, John Cannon, Zarrow in row 6. Austin Grover, Jason Shuey, and Ty Smith will complete the top 15. Tristan Maher, Connor Holden, Bill Edwards, Garrett Gleason, Alonso Chicano, that's the top 20. And then Matthew Rodriguez, Kyle Lewis, and Dylan Body, that's down through 23rd. They're the drivers on the lead lap. Mark Jones, I believe, took the wave around, getting one of his 2 laps back, so he'll be the only car 1 lap down, the 24th position. If we see another quick yellow before the conclusion, he more than likely will be back on the lead lap as well, as it's going to officially be, at least at this point in time in regulation, 7 laps to go in the 2nd race at Talladega here tonight.
Yeah, that's one question is if we'll actually stay in regulation all the way to the finish here of this 3rd lap event. And we didn't see it in the first half, but obviously the intensity seemed to be a little bit later here for the 2nd race. And obviously with that last lap wreck we saw, in the last race, it might kind of play out a little differently. Just a lap earlier potentially. It was now a green flag will come out. Another early jump right there by Shane Tyrion in the 88 machine as Joey Chapman down in the inside lane, and just fall out there. Ty Smith got his black flag is cleared, so look for him. It was just a neo penalty, and he'll restart the tail end of the field here with just 7 laps to go.
Like Shane Tyrion and Joey Chapman pulling the Joey Logano coin phrase okie dokie, with Tyrion tucking down in front of the 81. They'll link up and try and pull ahead of Valvano, who now has Cam Caldwell and Robert Kenny behind him. So 2 Camrys trying to hold off a Ford, a Chevrolet, and a Toyota. Now Michael Norman enters into the vicinity. He and Kenny going to jump to the high line. So just like that, 2nd lane being formed. And we talk about the ability to generate runs. You've got to take that momentum somewhere. So no surprise, we're already starting to see runs being made before these cars get up to full song.
Yeah, oh, big block right there by Shane Tyrion. Really aggressive move to jump up the outside lane. Is now Bronson Stafford as he chips straight back down in front of his
61.
teammate.
Where's
Trying to
his
control.
drafting help? Where's the invisible 5 or 6 cars? Where did he get that momentum?
His help was the 88 machine blocking the field out front and stacking everybody up. It's now the 97, actually, of Mike Tiller to try to help him in the outside lane. Gives him a bit of a bump right there in the center of the corner. And a really aggressive block there by Shane Tyrion, kind of trying to assert his dominance here late in this event. Make sure that nobody at all, even his teammates, get around him. Is now Bronson Stafford through on the outside lane. Gets a bit of help for the 97 and the 44 of Christopher Tate, making his way back up here through the field in that 44 machine. Is now they're 3x3x3 all the way through the field. Some loose race cars where they're hanging on to at the moment.
That was Chris Tate really loose up there on the top side. Michael Norman was close to the right rear quarter panel of Robert Kenny going to 3. Thought that maybe he might hook the 34. Everybody, for the time being, keep the fenders on them. It's going to be 3 wide for the lead coming back to the start-finish line. This looks familiar from earlier on in this race. Kenny, Stafford, and Tyrion. It was Stafford this time on the top side that edged out his teammates.
Yeah, I got to keep in mind from that last race, this is exactly where that incident happened. These guys were going 3 and 4 wide, and a lot of these guys who decided to use their fast car, especially our race leader, Shane Tyrion, it's all about, can you avoid the incident when it's inevitably going to happen? And the question is, where does it happen, especially on the racetrack? Back straightaway is usually the easiest place to avoid an incident, but when you're in the center of the corner on the inside lane, you're kind of boxed in, especially not knowing if those cars are outside are getting turned until it's too late. But still 3x3 through the field at the moment. Nobody playing it safe whatsoever as the 61 pinches really aggressively down there on the door of the 34 machine. Is now looks like he's continuing to get a push from Mike Tellier, who's just doing a fantastic job to keep basically taining him up with the 61 machine without getting them turned sideways whatsoever. Is now he looks potentially 4 wide, just trying to probably get some air actually on the nose of that Toyota Camry.
So far here tonight, maybe with the exception of the Dylan body spin, we have not had any small wrecks at Talladega, and that's been because they've been wadded up just like this, 3 wide, several rows deep. Tyrion now with the help on the inside is going to clear to the middle line. He's going to be clear for the top spot. Chapman now with a big push from Belvano. He's going to go to the race lead into turn 3.
And just 2 cars in line behind them. David Duran mentioned that first race had that incident on lap 5. Couldn't use his fast repair after he forgot to check it. Unfortunately, having some connection issues at the moment, actually, just as I say that. But he's up there trying to kind of rebound his season, get it around on the turnaround the second half. And now he's 3rd car on the inside lane here, bound for the race win.
Mentioned the fact that last season we came to Talladega 3 times. 2 of those races went into overtime. We ran regulation in the first dual race here earlier on tonight. Will we be able to make regulation?
No.
And that will probably be a no, as Shane Tyrion
They
says
saved it!
How did they all save it? Valvano and Tyrion should have been wrecked. Somehow everyone pointed straight. The green flag remains out.
No way that all those guys just made it staying on it. Vince Valvano was 45 plus degrees sideways on the apron, and now that obviously is going to separate the entire field. 3 cars, Bronson Stafford, Mike Tellier, and out of nowhere, Tristan Mayer from the back of the field all night long is that 3rd car, and that Tango up front is to come around at 2 laps to go. Can the rest of the field catch back up to him?
Oh, they've got the numbers. Oh, David Duran getting up into Christopher Tate there, muscling his way on by. I wonder if there might be some tempers flaring there between the 24 and the 44, as up at the front, the trio of Stafford, Tellier, and Maher, hoping they can't get formed up from 4th place on back. They'd like to settle it out amongst the 3 of them, but I don't think that's going to happen, because Kenny's now got Chapman, Poteet, Shane Tyrion, a lot of fast cars, and they're only about a second off of the top 3.
Yeah, kind of separated to 3 packs as the 5 machine noses in the inside wall super hard and down the back straightaway. Got hooked around right there off the nose of the number 58 of John Carazaro, trying to get in line, and unfortunately for him, his race is done here with no caution flag coming out for that incident. As now you kind of see that separated the field even more back behind these top 7 drivers. Looks like it's probably to come down between them and potentially Bill Ubbers in that 8th place as we get the white flag here in the second doubleheader event at Talladega. Bronson Stafford, can you hold him off?
Robert Kenny with that big momentum. He's going to shift from bottom to top. He'll get alongside of Mike Tellier for 2nd. Looks to get to Stafford, doesn't have the help. It's going to be Tellier pushing Stafford on the inside line. Let's see who takes the risky move down below the double yellow line here into turn 3.
Nobody at the current moment, to my surprise, and Robert Kennedy now has some help from the number 98 Ford of Tristan Mayer. Can the 97 Mike Taylor get clear? He does. Will he try to make a move here on the 61, coming to the travel and jump up in front of that number 34 machine? As they come off turn number 4, Bronson Stafford trying to make that car as wide as he can. As the number 97 gets turned around by Joey Chapman. There comes Tristan Mayer and Dylan Poteet. Dylan Poteet with a huge run down at 4 wide, coming to 5 wide now, coming across the second flag. 61, Bronson Stafford somehow came out of that with the race win. Wow, what a finish.
And the top 3 crossing the start finish line all wrecked. Stafford totaled into the inside wall, but wins the race by 22 one-thousandths of a second, as they were 4 wide, as you mentioned, coming across the start finish line. 74 one-thousandths from Stafford to Maher to Poteet to Terrian. Well, there's a lot to unpack there on that final lap. My goodness, Stafford's car is totaled. He can't even do any celebratory burnouts at the start-finish line, but not really sure he's going to care, as that's another guy coming off of last week from iRacing Superspeedway who felt he should have won that race, finished runner-up to Robert Kenny, but gets redemption here today with his first checkered flag of his TNR Superspeedway Series career.
Yeah, we saw that rebound last week at Iris and Superspeedway, and obviously it pays it off huge here as the 88 machine, Shane Tyrion, actually made it 6 wide up there on the outside lane, trying to come across the start-finish line. As Bill Edwards made it 5 up the middle. Wow, what a finish. That was one of the most insane finishes I've ever seen on iRacing. These guys just do not disappoint here in the TNR Superspeedway Series.
Take a look at this through the tri-oval. Poteet goes down to the apron. Kenny to the outside of Stafford. There's Maher to the outside of Kenny. There is Terrian up on the top side right against the wall, and Bill Edwards stuffs his nose in, which led to the contact and the domino reaction to the start-finish line. It was a case of close your eyes, smash the throttle, and hope that your nose is going to be the first one back to the stripe. And Bronson Stafford, while he pays the price, nosing it into the inside retaining wall, kind of a la Kyle Busch from that Xfinity race, he is going to be the one in victory lane here tonight. But I'll tell you what, you take 24 drivers, you put them in a race, say, hey, you got 30 laps till the checkered flag. You got to prepare for these kind of exciting races, and neither of our dual races at Talladega tonight were a disappointment at all.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, we saw these guys all basically wreck without a caution flag, wreck without a wreck, if you will. Just proving that these guys who race Super Speedways every single week can pick it up really quickly and immediately become veterans with their experience here. And going from that huge save kind of separating the pack to having a 6 wide finish coming across the start-finish line. That was one of the most insane finishes, once again, I've seen in iRacing. And that was just what a wild event. And honestly, Bill Edwards kind of shook that whole thing up coming across the finish line, trying to make it 5 wide up the middle, which is, just a sentence that you can decide on your own right there. As far as the intensity of the finish, he tried to push the 61, get up the middle in between the 61 and the 34, accidentally kind of pushed the 61 out front, as it looked like Robert Kenny had the run and win the race, and then he actually turned Robert Kenny sideways, and that kind of changed the whole complexion of that finish, and immediately, kind of shifted Robert Kenny from winning to finishing 5th.
And I love the point you brought up there as well about the fact that we probably should have seen a couple more cautions in this race, but avoided them with some tremendous saves. Shane Tyrion, he was wrecked. You mentioned the fact that car was completely spun out, and he still brings it back to finish in the top 5 in the 4th position. As we look at the finishing results here, and I mean, just look on down to Austin Grover, less than 0.2 of a second separating the top 7. Tate here tonight in his second start of the series in 8th place. Dylan Body, who was involved in the only caution here in this second race, bringing it home in 9th, and Cam Caldwell there in 10th. A lot of drivers I'm noticing up here in the finishing results of the second race did not have the results they were looking for in the first race, getting themselves some redemption here tonight.
Yeah, and every single driver in the field was involved in that last lap, and so not a single one of them made him through, but obviously all those guys very pleased with the result they were able to achieve, being 5 and 6 wide coming across the finish line. But as you mentioned, what an incredible rebound of all of these guys coming through the field right there. Christopher Tate, Shane Thierry, and a lot of guys that just continue to prove Talladega, it's not over until you cross the start finish line. And no matter what, just you can't give it up. And as long as you have a race car still and four wheels and a steering wheel in your hand, you can just kind of make it back up there and contend for the race win.
And obviously, it's still too early to say, but it's certainly looking right now like Robert Kenny is the car to beat. His consistency continues on here tonight. Had that solid outing in the first race. He brings it home in the top 5 here in the second race. He's been the points leader ever since his victory last week at iRacing Superspeedway. And we talked about the condensed schedule from 9 down to 7 races, 2 races at Daytona and the season finale at iRacing Superspeedway left to be run. And at this point in time, it is looking like that 34 is got himself almost a death grip on this championship. But we know with the unorthodox point system, there still is a chance for a driver to mount a comeback. But I think right now that 34 is public enemy number 1 in terms of that championship trophy.
Yeah, definitely. And Bill Edwards, you mentioned finish at Daytona, the season opener. Got another solid finisher tonight in the 6th position. I believe, based off the math in my head, I believe he'll jump up to the 2nd position with Michael Norman and Jason Shuey kind of having some not so great results there at the end of that one. So going to be a big point shakeup. But as you mentioned, Robert Kenny just continues to, every single week we've seen him battle for the win so far during the season. After Daytona, we saw Irish Superspeedway. He grabbed the checkered flag. He was leading the back straightaway there just a half an hour ago before he got collected in that last lap incident. And then once again was on the front row coming across the finish line right there in the second Talladega race. And so as you mentioned, continuing to prove that he's the guy to beat for this championship.
Well, Bronson Stafford now becomes the 3rd driver on the season to capture his first career checkered flag in the TNR Sunday Super Speedway Series. We'll be talking with him momentarily. We're first going to talk with some of the other podium finishers, and how about a driver making his 3rd start on the season here tonight, bringing it home in the podium, Dylan Poteet.
Up there in Dory.
Hey, Dylan, it's Lucas and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
I do. How's it going?
Well, first off, nice to see a car out there that wasn't an iRacing generic car, but nonetheless, we saw you up in the thick of it at the end of the first Dega race earlier on tonight. You bring it home, P3 here in a wild photo finish in the second Dega race, but we were talking to some of the podium finishers from race 1 and asking, was there anything strategically you could apply from race 1 into race 2? Was that the case for you here in the second race? Was there anything you learned from the first Dega race that you applied here, or was it 2 entirely different races?
It was honestly, I think, 2 entirely different races. I tried to take what I got from the first race and apply it for this one, but it was a lot of the same, except it was a lot more calm this time. I think we kind of learned our lesson the first time, so I think everybody's more content just to kind of route around and just try to get toward the end. And we still had a couple close calls. We all got up there, and a couple of my teammates were right beside me. That was scary. And then I've had wheel problems for both races, honestly, too. My wheel's not staying centered for some reason. So the reason I didn't stay up front on that last pit stop after leading was I had to recalibrate, which I was very glad I did that, because I probably wouldn't have done the same move I did there with the broken wheel. So
yeah, you mentioned his teammates there kind of getting connected in that second incident that we saw. Just kind of talk about, working with your teammates. Talladega obviously is crucial, and being, at the finish there after those teammates kind of got together, and I'm sure you probably had some bad blood there a little bit into the team communications. But just being up there without any of the help from those guys, it seemed like nobody was really willing to work with anybody there at the end. But just kind of talk about trying to contend, and put yourself up there, try to grab the checkered flag without having any additional help.
You just kind of go with whoever you could find, honestly. I found Joey right there at the end. We worked really well last week, and we've ran quite a bit lately together, so I felt comfortable working with him, and I was committed with him until him and Mike got together. But yeah, there was no bad blood on our team, Chad. It was kind of all worked out. It just kind of happened. But we were trying to, honestly, on that deal, try to get up there and get to the bottom, but we couldn't all clear. So we kind of were just trying to control both lanes. It just didn't work out. But you just kind of just go with who you can. I've learned both ways. You think somebody's going to work with you and they don't. And with the the no out of bounds rule, that definitely has been I've been on the receiving end of that quite a bit. I've had a lot of people actually get me. I think it happened in the first race. They got me off the last corner, and I got passed by 2 cars on the apron. So I'm kind of getting used to either not getting the help or getting it. So it's just kind of a mixed bag, honestly.
Now, we knew that one factor that was more than likely not going to come into play in this race was pit road and green flag pit stops. We knew that you guys could make it the 30 scheduled laps in each one of the dual races, but we didn't account for the possibility of whether you guys could make it on fuel if we went into any overtime green white checkers. Now, we saw in the only caution here in the second race, you and pretty much the entire rest of the field coming down pit lane. So, was fuel a concern if you guys had gone green all the way to the end and then maybe seen a late race yellow?
I believe so because I think we were maybe within a 2 lap gap of making it, but I think with the green white checkers possibility, it kind of eliminated our chances. So I think everybody kind of just think it was best just to pit and just get it out of the way and just for sure make it because we didn't know how many we were going to get. Luckily, we didn't have any, but I think even if we didn't have a green white checker, it would have been close for all of us. So I think it was better off just to play it safe there, just to make sure we make it to the end.
Well, Dylan, congratulations on your first top 5 of your TNR Sunday Superspeedway Series career. 3rd place here tonight in the second Dega race, and now we're going to hand the mic over to you for some thank you sponsors and shoutouts.
Oh, well, obviously, thanks, Valvoline, for being on the car and our whole team. We we had ourselves a heck of a race. Trap House, our team was, our track house, I should say. We were just having ourselves a mess of a race, but thanks to all our teammates that all worked together, Dylan, Connor, and Ty, and it was fun racing everybody up front. Great race. Hopefully, do something else in the near future. Try to get one of these cars in victory lane.
That's Dylan Poteet. He's your 3rd place finisher here tonight in the second Dega dual race in the TNR Sunday Superspeedway Series. Congratulations once again. Best of luck next week at Daytona.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for putting on the broadcast.
Let's see if we can now get our 2nd place finisher, Tristan Maher. Hey, Tristan, it's Lucas and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Got you guys.
And I'll tell you what, Talladega never disappoints with exciting finishes. Nearly 6 wide coming across the start-finish line. Seemed like everybody was able to generate a run there on Bronson coming back to the stripe. What little more did you need to be able to edge him out?
Oh, I think everybody had a pretty good run except for Bronson for some reason. I don't know if he got a bad exit out of 4 or what was going on, but I just needed some help. I know I got a run on Kenny, went to his outside, and I didn't have anybody behind me. And that's pretty much it. I mean, I think if I had somebody hit me from behind, I probably would have got it.
Tonight we saw Tristan, you were playing the kind of, classic strategy of just kind of riding the back, staying out of trouble, and then working your way up towards the front at the end. With that first race being just about an hour ago, did you kind of learn anything as far as the intensity at the end of the race and which line you felt like was going to get you up front, the quickest? Because it kind of seemed like you were just kind of out back, taking it nice and easy, and all of a sudden you appeared in 3rd place and you're up there contending for the race win. Can you, just kind of describe, maybe potentially what you learned from that first race being just a few minutes ago and be able to carry it in here in the second race?
So the first race, I mean, I didn't really learn a whole lot. I think I only raced maybe 13 laps or something of the first one. I got in one of the wrecks, and then I went down pit road and used my fast repair, and it did the iRacing glitch, and it put my tire right in the center of my hood. So then I could no longer race, obviously. But anyways, I didn't really learn a lot from the first one, honestly, besides the fast repair doesn't work sometimes.
Well, Tristan, obviously, though, a great comeback run after you had some struggles in the first Dega race. But, we saw a lot of different manufacturer alliances. We saw a lot of driver alliances. The Fords are kind of outnumbered in these super speedway races. Only 4 of you in these Dega races here tonight. So, do you look for fellow Fords to be able to work with? Are there certain drivers that you look for specifically to try and work your way to the front? And do those alliances carry over or change when you end up having back-to-back races like we had here tonight?
I mean, I think obviously we definitely look for, well, I definitely look for some other Mustangs. I don't know why they're not as popular as the other ones. Maybe it's because they're kind of ugly in this model. But I've definitely have some teammates to work with. Radius Racing. I was working with Bill Edwards, Cam Caldwell, Alonso Chicano. And we were just, we tried to do what we could to stay together. Didn't really work out for us. David Duran and I, in the second race, we kind of got stranded away from the pack, and they started pulling away from us. Luckily, we had a caution. Got us back up there, and then we were going to try to stay in a line. Things didn't really play out for us, though. We got separated. The restart was kind of wonky, and everybody is going for any gap they can find. So it's easier said than done for sure, but I think it was a good night all in all.
Yeah, great performance for you here tonight in the second Dega race. Second place for you. You jump quite a bit in the point standings, up 19 spots to 14th in the standings heading to Daytona next week. So congratulations on that. Now we're going to give you the opportunity to thank some sponsors and do some shout-outs.
First, I'd like to thank TNR. This is a great league. Every single racing series they put on turns out to be a hit. Radius Racing, all my teammates there. You guys up in the booth, you guys do a great job. I always enjoy going back and watching the race, hearing you guys' reactions. I think that's all we got.
That's Tristan Mayer. He's going to bring it home in second place here tonight in the second Dega race of the evening. Congratulations once again, and best of luck at Daytona next week.
Thanks, guys.
Let's go down to Victory Lane. Second time tonight, we crown a first-time winner here in the TNR Sunday Superspeedway Series. And in the second race, it's Bronson Stafford. Hey, Bronson, Lucas, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
I gotcha.
Well, man, sixth place in the first race, the winner here tonight. We talked to you last week after the runner-up finish at iRacing Superspeedway. Gotta feel like sweet redemption from a week ago. You finally put this car in Victory Lane, and I mean, we've seen that this car has been fast any place that you bring it to. What was the key to keeping not only just 2 or 3 cars, but about 5 or 6 cars in your rearview mirror coming to the stripe here in this one?
Honestly, a lot of it goes to teamwork and like teammates with like Tellier. After oddly enough, the teammates almost caused the wreck with Shane and Kenny, and they both saved it and lost all that time. Tellier was able to stay there and just stayed on the bumper until the engine was absolute blinking. And then by that time they were on us, and it was just kind of hoping that the field kind of loses some momentum when they got to us, and they kind of did. So it was just, I don't think I ever looked in front of my car after turn 2 on the white flag. So just all mirror work and making sure, watch the lines, and we kind of got lucky. Bill, like Edwards, he had nowhere else to go, ended up getting behind me, shoved me about 6 miles an hour quicker, and it got me the win. So honestly, got a little lucky, but yeah, it was a fun night. We were up front all night, so.
Hey, you mentioned getting that push there across the finish line, and interesting to point out, last week at Irish Superspeedway, you had that massive rebound coming from through laps down to work your way up towards the front, and could send your teammate there, Robert Kenny, for the race win. And it almost seemed like, ironically, it was almost roles reversed. Of course, there was a lot more cars kind of added into the factor, but Robert Kenny was that first car behind you initially, trying to pass you coming to the start finish line there. Did you potentially, maybe learn something from last week as far as his defense and his maneuvers as you were trying to pass him, and what did you maybe try to pull on him and the other cars that come up in your rear there behind you?
I wouldn't say necessarily from last week. I would just probably more years of racing each other. Honestly, like the whole Sky Motorsports team, we're so good at super speedway tracks, and I think it kind of shows right now with last week and now today too. And then, Shane and I literally started first and second tonight, and I don't know what it is. We're really good at these tracks. We were up front all night. We just kind of generally know each other's moves, so it's kind of hard to surprise each other with something to sell them a dummy or whatnot. But no, like honestly, everyone on the team's so good at plate tracks. So like if it comes down to you and one other, it's so hard to try and beat each other because you can't fake each other out. So.
Bronson, we've got the points in from this race, and it has really tightened up now. I believe, were 6th in the point standings after the close of the third race, just before we went green here in the second Dega Duel race. Now up 3 more spots to second place, 4 points behind Robert Kenny. 3 races left on the schedule, 2 at Daytona, 2 different versions of Daytona, and then, of course, iRacing Superspeedway. So, I mean, the momentum certainly seems to be in the camp of the 61. Can you keep it up and maybe close it out with the championship title?
Be fun. I missed the first race, so honestly, to even be second now after missing Daytona, like the season opener, is really cool. I didn't know there was only 3 races left. Honestly, I'm just here for fun. It's something to do before anything else more serious. And it's super speedways are a lot of fun, and the Legacy Xfinity cars, they draft so well. But we definitely do have some momentum. I mean, a second, sixth, and a first in the first 3 races to run in is really strong. But I mean, Kenny as well. He finished first, 10th, and I think 5th tonight. So like, I mean, it's still all there. Shane's quick here every week now too, and so we're getting things clicking. We're getting things going. The whole team's quick, so it really will come out to maybe who's a little bit luckier between if we can, stay at the front of the field and try and get wins. It might come down to who's the luckiest out of the team to actually have a shot at the title.
Well, they had to load your car onto a wrecker to bring it to victory lane, but nonetheless, that's where you stand, the winner of tonight's second race at Talladega. Congratulations on a well-deserved victory, and now we're going to hand the mic over to you for some victory lane. Thank you, sponsors, and shout-outs.
Oh yeah, for sure. With the whole Sky Motorsports team, myself, Shane, Kenny, Matt Rod, Tellier, and Chapman, we all night, I think we showed a lot of speed. I think Matt Rod and Tellier had some really bad luck overall tonight, but yeah, like overall, just really quick. And just everyone that makes it happen. You guys, FRN, and I think Matt and Mike put on this series, like the Superspeedway itself, and it's just a lot of fun. So just everything that makes it happen, everything that's nice and fun, and it's always just fun to get up here and talk to you guys, Seth and Lucas. So it's just fun.
That's Bronson Stafford. He captures his first win in the TNR Sunday Superspeedway Series here tonight in the second Talladega race. Congratulations once again, Bronson, and best of luck next week as we head to the 2008 version of Daytona.
Thanks, Seth.
Well, my goodness, what a couple of events here tonight. We knew that when it was going to be Talladega and it was going to be shortened races, that it was going to be absolutely chaotic at the end, but kind of two different races. We ended up seeing some early cautions in race number 1. It was kind of a survival of the fittest in the closing stages. Came down to 2 drivers, Michael Norman able to win that one, but then maybe a little bit more calmer in the first half, first 2/3 of the second race, but we knew that the intensity was going to pick up late, and 5-6 wide at the start finish line. This was Talladega. We've still got 2 Daytona races coming up, and then we go to the ever spacious iRacing Superspeedway to settle that out for the championship. I mean, if Talladega was this good with the shortened races, I think people are definitely going to want to tune in to the home stretch here heading down to the end of the season.
Yeah, honestly, it seems like almost every single week these guys manage to top what they just did. We have an awesome finish, and then the next week they do even better, and I'm not entirely sure it's going to be possible to top what we just saw here tonight at the end of that second Talladega race especially, but, every single week these guys continue to prove it, and, like you mentioned, Legacy Daytona next week, that's a completely different racetrack, though. You basically take, 4 lanes here at Talladega that are usable, and you kind of narrow it up to almost 2, potentially 3 if you're daring enough with the bumps and the narrowness of that racetrack. So definitely going to be a completely different game next week at Daytona. But, here tonight, once again, just a complete wild event. And I honestly really like this doubleheader kind of strategy. Usually we see duels on plate tracks. Like I mentioned earlier, you usually have one, half the field's lined up in one duel and half the field in the second. But line all the guys up after just completing that first race and have them all start again in the second race. Put on a heck of a show. And we mentioned Dylan Poteet. He mentioned kind of learning some things in that first race, even the whole field, kind of learning where to be aggressive, and they kind of kept it cleaner until the end in that second race, and obviously gave us a fantastic finish. So definitely a huge advocate now for that doubleheader idea.
We mentioned about the fact that Kenny and Stafford, 4 points separating those guys heading into next week. Shane Tyrion's now jumped up to 3rd. Bill Edwards, Michael Norman, our winner from the first race tonight, the top 5. Jason Shuey currently sits in 6th. These drivers are all separated by 59 points. And if you look at the case of Jason Shuey, a normal fan would say, well, 59 points with 3 races left, he's out of it, isn't he? But you got to remember that going into the season finale last season at Daytona, Mike Tellier was 79 points out of the championship lead, but still mathematically eligible, with the fact that we've got this rather interesting point system, not only in finishing position, but in the bonus points that are handed out. So, they still all got a chance. And I'm looking at other guys back there too, like Ryan Hesgard, if he comes back for the remaining races, Joey Chapman, Vincent Valvano, guys that are just inside of the top 10. They've still got a mathematical shot. If they pick up a win or 2 in the final 3 races of the season, they could still put themselves mathematically eligible for the championship by the time we get to iRacing Superspeedway.
Yeah, most definitely. Winning in this series is absolutely everything. They've obviously designed an incredible format that kind of sets yourself up for that. And, if people can rack up a bunch of wins and get themselves out front, it's tough to beat. But, we've seen 4 races so far this season and 4 different winners. We kind of had something similar last season. It took 7 races until we got a repeat winner there with Matthew Rodriguez picking up the win once again for his second of the season. With only 7 races this season, we might not see anybody go to victory lane multiple times. So these guys continue to just kind of each individually rack up their wins and those bonus points to kind of get themselves close to that championship front. And, Robert Kenny, we mentioned how consistent he's been. He did get the win in Irish and Super Speedway, but he's only got a 4-point advantage now over Ronson Stafford, who completely missed the race. So winning is absolutely everything. And we continue to shake this point standings up as we head further into the second half of the season.
Well, we saw the legacy version of Daytona, which was visited twice last season, really play its part into the outcome of the championship. It also gave us some exciting finishes and some surprise winners. Matthew Rodriguez winning the first one and Garrett Gleason winning the second one. That's our venue next week as we draw ever closer to the end of the season and determine the championship. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We know that drivers always seem to have so much to think about. You got to deal with the abrasive bumps at the older version of that super speedway. So that's going to be a lot of fun to see how drivers are going to be able to tackle that as they start to prepare themselves a couple of weeks removed from the season finale.
Yeah, most definitely. Definitely looking forward to Daytona, and that continues to just, the action there is always tamer, if you will, but it's a lot more difficult on the driver's part to kind of keep their car under control, and especially for a Super Speedway, it makes it more of a driver's track.
Well, that is going to be race number 5, as races 3 and 4 are in the books here tonight at Talladega Superspeedway. A couple of first-time winners as a result. Michael Norman, winner of Dega race number 1, and Bronson Stafford, winner of race number 2. A couple of thrillers here tonight at the high banks of Talladega Superspeedway. We appreciate all of you joining us here tonight for the doubleheader duels at Dega. Lucas, it's been a great one here tonight. Some exciting finishes. Can't wait to do this again next week. Thanks for joining me in the booth here tonight.
Absolutely. Definitely needed a week to recover my voice from that finish, but always a pleasure, Seth.
Thanks to everybody. Hope that you guys join us next week as we continue on the season down the home stretch towards the championship at the legacy version of Daytona next Sunday night, December 5th, with the green flag scheduled to fly at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For Lucas Cram, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night, folks, as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.